north of Milan. Built in 1922, the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza has long since become the crown jewel of Italian motorsports. Today, this famed 5.7-kilometer circuit plays host to the penultimate round of the Intercontinental GT Challenge Esports Series. Hello everyone, I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Mike Nous, and we'll be bringing you all the action from today's 3 hours of Monza. Mike, welcome in, and this, of course, is the famed Monza. We've got all the corners, all the chicanes, all the opportunity for drama, and on a track like this, and on a day like today where anything can happen, it's guaranteed that it will.
It certainly is, Jesse. Thank you very much. And it is a track that is set within royal surroundings, of course, and tonight, I think we're going to be making some history as well with 3 hours here at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. And of course, this is a track that's hosted some of the closest races in all of history. And I'd imagine tonight we're going to be seeing not an exception.
Well, we've got an excellent championship on hand, and you compact a race like this into 3 hours at a track known to breed chaos. It could be an exciting day for some, but an ultimately frustrating day for many. We hope to escape that sort of drama and have a fantastic race. The drag races down this humongous and mighty pitch straight is something to behold as well. It's going to be one of those days you're going to see championship dreams absolutely quashed, but maybe a few of them will be reignited today. We'll show you the championship standings in just a little bit. Mike, I'm quite curious what you're looking out for today in our 3 hour race that's going to feel more like a sprint than an endurance.
Yeah, especially for these drivers. They're used to the 24-hour races, and of course, we do have the 24 hours of Nürburgring coming up as well. Now, the thing I'm going to be keeping an eye on out there tonight is, of course, our pole sitter, the AMG, the 255 competition car that has been ever so dominant throughout the entirety of this championship. Or I should say, they're as well in 9th position in the standings overall, but behind them, of course, leading the championship, the team MSI, which is another AMG, and of course, we've been seeing the Ferrari Esports team dominating recently with a win taken on the previous track over at Indy, and now we're going to be seeing if they can redeem themselves, or Red Bull Ring, excuse me.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we had the summer break. This is our first race back by the end of the month of September. The championship here at the IGTC will be over. Here is, of course, the entry list as accompanied by all the usual teams in all the usual spots. Everyone here still vying for championship supremacy. Everyone here in the pro standings in general, they have championship points. Only a few of the silver teams do not, but they will be looking to further bolster their finishing positions. But pro and silver here, all the teams that we're aware of have made the race today. That's a blessing and a curse considering what turn one is at this particular racetrack, Mike.
Yeah, it certainly is. The turn one giveth and turn one taketh away here at Monza, the Variante Rettifilio, and of course you can see all of the lovely standings there on screen. We have more than just one class out there. We got both silver and gold out there tonight. As we take a look here at our gold standings, this is going to show you that the Team MSI number 86 car on top by just about 50 points, a little bit less than that. The Scuderia Ferrari HP Esports team coming in second at 106.5 points respectively, and the Autodromo, or the Automobili Lamborghini Esports team in the Huracan coming home in third right now, biting at the heels right now of the Scuderia team. It's pretty much anyone's game in the mid-pack, but up at the top, it's looking like a bit of a one-horse, potentially a two-horse race. We'll see.
Yeah, it's very interesting, the Pro Series Championship. And folks, I'm going to make it as simple as I can do. Been doing the math, as you might expect. These are Jesse Lee maths, so do take it with a pinch of salt. But it is this: if Team MSI finishes in front of Scuderia Ferrari today, the championship is all but done and dusted. If the opposite occurs, the championship is absolutely alive going into the 24-hour decider at the Nürburgring. At the back end of the Pro Series, though, still a lot of points on offer where literally, in many cases, 1 point will make quite a difference. You can actually say that to exactly what Mike said. Outside the top 5, a point makes a difference indeed. Moving right along to the Silver Championship standings, a completely different story. There is deadlock at the top, the middle, and the bottom of the Silver standings. The BF Racing Esports team in that Ferrari 296 GT3 holds the top position with 95.5 championship points. Behind them, the 711 Veloce Academy McLaren has 85, and just a couple of points behind them, Visceral Esports by Asatek SimSport with 83.5 points. Gladius Competition in the 201 with 80.5, and rounding out the top 5, Genesis Esports by Genesis Risk with 78. But even behind them, ST Racing, Williams Esports Academy, CRT, a little bit of a gap back to CRT Pro, but even still, Vincenzo Racing and ResTech, again, close indeed. And if you get outside the top 10, Mike, it's the same story, just a few points per position. Today could be huge.
Yeah, the silver category is extremely exciting, and we saw Samantha Tan racing down in 6th position in the standings. Keep in mind that they took home the race win the last time for the silver category, the Genesis Esports taking home 2nd, giving them a really solid haul of points, and if they can make that happen again, they may find themselves up in the podium paying positions. This being your top 20, though, we see Arno Rohr rounding out the top 20th with 4 points. More or less, though, as you were saying, Jesse, the mid-pack is so extremely tight, just 1 to 3 points separating pretty much every single driver. And of course, with how many races we've had thus far, it's incredible to see how tight the margins are.
It really is. Just take a look at these standings. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2 points. The difference there, and it doesn't get any better at the back. You would expect there to be less competition. It's actually the opposite. There's more competition. You see Drive Just Boys by Sim Magic there is 3 points, and then you have Myrtle Motorsports and the Brabham Eau Rouge team tied with 2, and ResTech by Acelith doesn't have any points, of course, with a couple of other cars down there as well. But anything can happen today, and just what we said in the intro, if anything can happen, you can guarantee it will. Well, folks, we are at Monza. It is a somewhat tight track that widens out at points. It is a racetrack that racers really love because you kind of get your elbows out a little bit, but more than anything, if you have a car that is in low drag mode, you're feeling really good on these straights. Got to take care of the tires, though, and a lot of teams, they overlook that at a racetrack like this.
Yeah, certainly will, especially if the track temp can get up here. This track, it only really has 6 corners. Okay, it's not 11 turns, 4 to the left and 7 to the right, and a track founded back in 1922, 3.6 miles or 5.7 kilometers. And as Jesse was saying, lots of long straights. In fact, the start-finish straight, about 0.7 of a mile, that's 1.1 kilometers. And here at Monza, you're going to be flat out for roughly 85% of your lap.
Yeah, that's actually incredible. That is certainly something that we will have to take a look at. And of course, you got to be careful with some of these curbs as well. Pole position was grabbed 24 hours ago. It was a hotly contested session, and Jordan Sherritt won it for the 255 competition team. Let's take you on board and show you the pole lap. Well, there you have it, a pole lap for Jordan Sheridan, the 255 competition team. And I thought for a second they were going to invalidate right there at the end of the lap. It would explain they had the quickest first and second sector. They were not the quickest in the third sector. The third quickest car was actually the quickest in the third sector. And of course, that is Team MSI. The 51 Ferrari, Scuderia Ferrari, set in P2. Didn't hold any of the quickest sectors. Didn't matter. 75 100ths off of that pole lap. It was a 145.8 dead. But my goodness, did Sherritt cut it close in Sector 3, Mike?
Yeah, he certainly did, and just, especially Sherritt, he managed to put in a 145.4 a little bit earlier on in that session, so that was 4/10 slower than his fastest lap of the qualifying. Now, of course, it got the job done, so it's enough skills to pay the bills. Mikhail Stechenko was about 75 thousandths off, just about a tenth of a second. And in case you were curious, Jesse, do you know how far the Earth can travel in that time?
Are we starting off with Mike Now's fun facts before the race has even started? How fast?
The Earth would travel roughly 2.3 miles in about 1/10 of a second around the sun. In case anyone was curious, fun facts with Mike Noss here. More to come.
Earth is a fast race car. Yeah, just about half a second or so covers the entire field, by the way. The first three cars covered under a single tenth. The left of your screen, the 255 competition car setting on pole. Scuderia Ferrari on the outside pole. And there it is. Team MSI, your championship leaders there on the left. Remember, they finish in front of the 51. It's championship done and dusted. Ren Welton on the right.
Yeah, and behind him, of course, Ren Welton coming up, as I don't actually even have the timing. Ren Welton with the likes of Gladys behind. Why don't you take the rest of this one, Jesse?
Yeah, of course, the fourth and fifth place car that qualified into Super Pole, they did not actually set a time in that Super Pole session, so they were assigned those positions after invalidating their times. We saw how close your pole sitter got to doing that. A couple of cars, 2 out of the 5, actually did invalidate their times. Do bear in mind, we're keeping an eye on the championship race up at the front, but there's a lot of other players. We just saw the Williams Esports number 5 car. They're still alive in this. They could still get glory, I would argue, as high as P2, second place in the championship, if they continue at their pace. And as we continue down the grid and we make our way into the larger part of the silver field here, every single one of these positions are ultimately important. You never know who you're actually racing in the silver class. We saw the championship standings. You could be the winner any given week. Silver has kept us guessing every time.
Yeah, and I'm assuming it's going to keep doing so tonight, and we'll be keeping an eye very, very closely on who is going to be able to contest. You can see the liveries out there on the grid tonight. Some brilliant, brilliant machines. Lots of diversity as well in terms of manufacturer. There's a little bit of BOP on each of these cars, each of them a little bit different, of course, but so much diversity. Lots of Astons, lots of McLarens, lots of AMGs, and of course, lots of Ferraris. Beyond that, I don't think we have any Honda NSX, no Bentleys, or anything like that. Everybody taking the car choice pretty seriously.
Yeah, you may have seen the Automobili number 63 Lamborghini well deep into the field, and if you think that's odd that that car is so deep in the field, it is. They didn't make it out of Q1 yesterday, so they are going to start buried in the middle of the silver field. That is not what you wanted from a championship contender, and especially somebody P3 in the championship. They also came in today with an outside shot. They have 2.5 points of a delta from being knocked out of this championship. It's going to be a long 3 hours for them as they try to claw that Lamborghini up to some semblance of a good finish today. They're hoping for the downfall of Team MSI and Scuderia Ferrari today more than anyone else.
Yeah, hoping for the downfall of Team MSI is a bit of wishful thinking, in my opinion. They are a team that, beyond, I think, any other team out there, ended up falling on the back foot pretty early most of these races. I think this is one of the highest races they've ended up qualifying in for P3, but it seems time and time again, it does not matter if they qualify in first. It does not matter if they qualify in 8th, 10th, 15th. They managed to make their way through the grid, so hoping for the downfall of the 86 team, especially when you have the likes of Nicholas Hubin behind the wheel at the start. Wishful thinking.
So let's talk about that for a second. We've seen the Mercedes-AMG Esports Team MSI car qualify outside the top 10, race their way onto the podium, qualify just barely inside the top 10, and win races. They show up when it matters. And considering they don't have to claw all that back here today, what is a reasonable expectation? I don't think anything short of the win is on the cards today for the 86 car.
Yeah, but Mikhail Stechenko behind the wheel, he started last time around, and he did an incredible job. I've had the chance to catch up with Mikhail as well since the last race, but we'll be more on that in a little bit. The Ferrari Esports team has a very good fighting chance, in my opinion. Of course, they also are going to be fighting for that championship not too far behind.
Yeah, this very interesting dynamic here. The 255 competition car, they've got it on the pole position. They've had flashes of brilliance in this season. Today, could this be the win, the shot in the arm that they were looking for all along? I think it may do, but I think in the race, it's going to be a lot of Scuderia Ferrari and back and forth with Team MSI. You actually already see a 30-second penalty for several cars. Those will have happened either prior to qualifying, an infraction based on the entry, or something that happened in qualifying. Will bring that to you. So right off the bat, it may be pole position for the 255 Aston, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to keep that for long. Maybe just the first stint before they serve that penalty.
Yeah, certainly, and it will be a 30-second penalty served at the first drive, the first pit stop that they do make. They will not be needing to make an extra stop in a pit lane for that one. Before they do get their new set of tires and new repairs done, they will have to remain stationary for 30 seconds before the auto jacks are allowed to pick them up, and then Jordan Sherritt and his team will be able to continue on their merry way. And of course, we see a 30-second penalty in a 3-hour race. Well, that's roughly, what, 10% of the race, Jesse? I know my math ain't that good.
Yeah, it really isn't the end of the world in a 24-hour race. In a 3-hour race, it's almost a nail in the coffin just a little bit. Quickly, before we go live for 3 hours of racing, it's just after 6 a.m. in sim time here in northern Italy. We're happy to have all of you with us here today to watch the penultimate round of the Intercontinental GT Challenge Esports Series. And a shout out to Moaning and the 2018, the ST Racing Esports team, who put it on pole in the silver class. And of course, the 223 Genesis Esports car P2 and P3 in that class, the Veloce Academy 711 McLaren. Getting ready to go racing. Sherritt may have a penalty now, but that won't matter here on the start. They can serve that at a pit stop of their, leisure later on. And of course, the Scuderia Ferrari 51 on the front row with them. Hubin and Burnt line up next. There's a start infraction for the 711, but it's a clean getaway for the 255 as they get a run down into turn one. They go defensive, but it looks like Scuderia Ferrari is going to have a bigger run. But even more than that, it looks like they're going to be blocked off by Team MSI. MSI being blocked in. Oh, and it's a huge incident. And there goes the 51. It looks like somebody had turned the Renwelton car into the field. 2 or 3 cars gone. Everybody filing through the first chicane and trying to avoid the additional carnage.
Yeah, that was Leon Burnt. That looked like, I'm not sure if there was contact that pushed him into it, but that was Leon Burnt going into the back of Mikhail Stechenko, and it looked like the Ferrari Scuderia team ended up on the worst end of that. But as a result, that has allowed Jordan Sherritt to take the lead by a decent margin. At this point, Mikhail is going to be behind Nicholas Hauben, now in third, or was in third, now in second. Was the timing charts do update, and we can see there soon we will be able to get the new updates. And Michael Moaning, he's managed to move his way up the field as well a decent bit, it seems.
Yeah, I didn't see exactly who that was. Some cars getting a little bit out of sorts coming through Lesmo 2 right there, but they just about get the car settled down. No further drama, no major drama at least, as it looks like nearly everybody has gotten away with it. It didn't look like Sherritt was going to be able to get away with it at the front of the field, but after that incident, they are now all by themselves and spoke too soon. Arthur Kammerer being sent in a scurry, a couple of cars scatter, and now they're all boxed in, exiting that section of the track on their way to the Parabolica.
Great reaction there from the Lamborghini, that Visceral Esports team there for the silver drivers of Stenbrook, or apologies, as they go down into the parabolic. Behind that is going to be the Ford Mustang of Kramer, and it's going to be down to the slipstream here to make a move into the first corner. Car off very deep, and it's 2x2 Noah's Ark formation, it seems, behind them, as there's quite a kerfuffle as we end lap 1.
Yeah, it really was a couple of inauspicious moments there for some of the teams, but they just about get it sorted out. And look at this, everybody fanning out down the pit straight, a run down into the first chicane, and it looks like most of them get it stopped just in time, 2x2 in a Retafilio, but they make it out single file. It's almost like a factory procession there. As you come in too wide, you end up single file. And that's kind of the way that they prefer it. But that's going to be that way all day long with these cars not being too spread out. The cars that have lower drag are going to get better runs out of the corners. And it's going to be one of those where your defensive maneuvers might win you places here today. And you might be a little bit more defensive being where you are, Monza, of course.
Yeah, and the question is, how defensive do you go early on? As we see there, this is going to be Wojtek Falas in the Williams Esports, or the Williams, Esports 2024 car. But it's going to be interesting to see strategy, and do these drivers fight absolutely tooth and nail at the start. Here we're going to see Dario Emilio. He is on a mission and wants to make up ground, gets by Fala without too much of an issue into a Scotty, and that looks like there's going to be a McLaren up ahead there, potentially going to be falling victim to the Ferrari in front. Either way, we'll see. Again, do you let the positions by? There's 3 hours here. It's a bit of a sprint race, as you had mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Jesse, at least for these drivers. So do you go full-on aggression? It seems behind that might just be the case.
Oh, nearly going wide there was Fiala, but he's still going to be right there beside him. I thought he got pushed wide, and they're going to be contact down the pit straight. Now, that's not on. You don't want to be doing too much of that, and they get single file finally. But I was more interested in the Automobili Lamborghini car up nearly 10 spots in 2 laps. That is not bad at all. We were worried about that car. And already they've gained so many spots. These two Mercedes, though, Tan and Fiala, absolutely taking it to each other here early.
Yeah, they are giving each other a run for the money, and there's no love lost just yet. Behind that is going to be Fabrizio Campanella, who needs to make their way either by or really not do much. This is, of course, a battle for non-position. It is for position overall, but not for position in class. A silver plate overtaking a white plate doesn't really matter that much. It does give a bit more of a buffer, though, for Campanella towards the back of De Bons. And, of course, Campanella currently running in 4th position right now in class. He does have 3 cars ahead, but it's a bit spread out in the silver category for the time being.
Yeah, something that was really impressive about what Emulo did there was that wasn't all silver cars they passed. Silver cars sprinkled within the field, but a lot of those cars they passed, the 10 or so that they got in 2 laps, a lot of those were pro cars. A lot of advantageous overtaking by Automobili Lamborghini has got them into the top 10. Talking about a car who started on the just about the 10th or so row of this grid. That would have been about 19th or 20th. They have done such a good job. Nicholas Halbin's done a really good job of not doing anything at all in this race, and sometimes doing nothing is the correct answer, and it is in this case. Sherritt has a penalty, 30 seconds worth to be exact. That'll be taken care of on the first pit stop of the day. That should give Team MSI the early lead. Scuderia Ferrari nowhere to be found. Stat5 down at 16th after that early incident with Renwelden. And that has almost sealed the deal. Calm waters ahead for Team MSI, maybe. Not calm at all for Dario Emilio, who is running roughshod through this field. P9 already in 3 or so laps.
Yeah, it's also not really that smooth running for the cars behind either. The 2 AMGs still fighting tooth and nail. We can see they have settled it for the time being. The AMG, I think they're the Williams Esports AMG, did get overtaken there once again, but I'd imagine there are a few more positions to be traded forth. And yeah, it is very interesting with Jordan Sherritt in the lead of this race, already pulling ahead 2 seconds of Nicholas Halbin. But as you were saying, it doesn't matter that much. That 30-second penalty, Nicholas, he knows that 30-second penalty is not going anywhere. It's here to stay. And as a result, Halbin just taking his time, being patient with Leon Burnt behind. Its potential as well up in the air. Is Leon going to be receiving a penalty? We haven't gotten a replay of that first corner incident yet to see who exactly was at fault. Of course, it's lap 1 at Monza, so putting blame on somebody isn't necessarily I don't want to say required, of course, it's required if it was at fault, but it's not unexpected to have a racing incident in the first corner at Monza.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark. I think the 71 Rinwelton car, I think that they were sent upon and were not actually the culprit of that incident. I think that they were also a victim, but didn't quite see exactly what might have transpired. I could have sworn, though, I saw the 71 out of sorts prior to the contact with Scuderia Ferrari. So that's my take. That may or may not be correct at some point. Maybe we'll get an eye on exactly what's going on. I'll tell you what's going on with Dario Amulio. This team is coming for the top 10. I pretty much written them off earlier on that it was going to be a rough day for them trying to make up these spots, but they've already made up so many. It's not a big deal. So wait, it wasn't the 71. This is the 72, and it's still up here. So I do apologize. I get the 71 and the 72 confused in my head. But no, the 72 is still up here in third place. And maybe I didn't see what I thought I saw.
Yeah, Leon here, he's been chugging along solidly with Michael Moning behind, which is a very welcome sight of a silver plate driver in fourth position for Leon. George Boothby has a bit of a barrier. He needs to make it by Michael at some point there, but you can see there's a little bit of a gap formed behind. As Michael here, he has just been driving superbly in that Samantha Tan, I almost said Camaro. No, it is a Ford Mustang GT3.
Yeah, my apologies to JP Motorsports, who are fielding the actual 71 and the 71 not involved in that at all. So my apologies to JP Motorsport. I got the 71 and the 72 confused. Of course, I was talking about the Rinwelton 72, but they seem to have gotten away with it as far as the turn one incident is concerned. I say that, but there's very clearly damage to the front of that Ferrari 296 spoiler, or splitter rather, since it's on the front of the car, and that can't be doing them any favors around Monza.
No, certainly not. And the Ferrari 296 in particular, a very, very required car for its front downforce. It's very similar to the McLaren. Here's a replay, though, of the start and how that damage exactly incurred. So as we have the run down here, we're going to keep an eye on that Ferrari on the outside in second position. So the Rinwelton car did get tagged by, it looks like, I cannot tell which McLaren that is.
223.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it did get tagged there, so not going to be Leon Bernst's fault whatsoever in the result of for Mikhail Stechenko, and just really, as the dominoes fell for Mikhail, he was the unlucky one at the end of the day.
Okay, so my eyes work, but I can't do math, as we've learned thus far. I can't count from 71 to 72, but that was the 223, the Genesis car behind there, and that did get the 72 out of sorts and get them into the 51, a pool shot, if you will, into turn one. A very common tactic, but I think the thing we actually should take away from the Rettifilio incident is that not more cars were involved, despite how far up the field that was. That usually can turn into chaos and mayhem. It really didn't. Everyone else, as you said when we went through there the first time, they sort of sorted themselves out after that. That could have been a lot worse.
If it was a pub lobby, it would have been a lot worse. But of course, these are esports drivers. These are the literal best of the best in this game, and they show why as they make a mistake there in front of our eyes. Perf call it a commentator's curse. But beyond that, yeah, it was a very, very dicey incident for the first corner, especially with 3 going into 1. Speaking of that, this is 2 trying to go into 1 here as we see Milanowski try for the move on the sister car, but doesn't find the daylight, and the back end there very loose.
Mache really thought about it, but decided discretion the better part of valor there, and just sort of let Pawlowski through. Pawlowski was able to make it through completely unaware of potentially the send into the Parabolica, and of course Malinowski didn't want anything to do with that to begin with. All credit and shout out to Michael Moning and the 28 Ford out in front. They're inside the top 5. We've seen them quite often feature inside the top 5, the ST Racing Esports Ford Mustang, and talk about them a little bit. Oh my goodness, the 45 from Visceral Esports,
You certainly do not. And was there contact or was that an unforced error? I'm sure we'll see a replay at some point and find out. But regardless, he has rejoined right in front of the Williams Academy machine. Trying to go for the outside line now is going to be Morera. Doesn't get it done, though. Gets onto the brakes early there and hands the position over for the time being. Behind that, it's causing, though, a bit of a concertina effect in the Ferrari, making moves. That's going to be Ramone going for a move onto Rotz, and he does make it happen, it seems still, though. The Porsche getting involved is absolutely electric here.
Cardinal trying to make a move on all of them there, and Santima behind them now peeking out in the 224 BMW, having a look on their way up to Ascari, and nope, can't quite do it. But no, look at the Porsche go. The Porsche's trying it still on Rats to the inside, but that's not necessarily a given through here, and it won't be, and it isn't. Orlando Rats for JP Motorsports loses a spot. Cardinal in the 258's up a spot in that Porsche.
Yeah, Orlando needs to be on his best behavior and have his head on a swivel here, as there are going to be cars diving to the inside of the Parabolica. The BMW thinks about a move. Abe Santama, though, he doesn't commit. Try to slingshot yourself down this 0.7 of a mile long straight, flat out the whole way. And of course, the slipstream effect, Jesse, it's accumulative. So we're going to be seeing more advantage for the BMW and the Ford in the back than we are the cars in the front.
You know, we've seen quite a bit of give and not a whole lot of take here. I know we've seen a couple of incidents, but by the by, they're not the biggest deal. And that's something that's slightly surprising in this shorter format race. I feel like it may have been the exact opposite at Indianapolis. Oh, and just as I've said that, the commentators curse, and it looks like Rockmont in the 818 has gone around off the nose of maybe Butson in the number 80 Honda. Couldn't quite see. But certainly that Ford has gone around, or at least it appears as if it has. We'll wait for timing and scoring to update, and yep, that is indeed. Actually, nope, another car had gone around there. Either way, a spin in the first chicane. Talk about Stubenrausch here in the 45 for Visceral. They went from 19th to 30th off that spin. This is the replay of that. How does this go down? A car out braking themselves. Oh my goodness, the 20 in there going bowling here.
Yeah, the R&L Roar car definitely missed brake. It looked like, at least at first glance, it missed its brakes there, and we'll be seeing if race control is going to be having a word with them and giving a little slap on the wrist. Of course, we do have live stewarding here tonight, so we will be seeing penalties rolling in as they do manage to work them out. The stewards, they got a lot of penalties, I would imagine, to view, so they will come in ebbs and flows and waves.
Yeah, they certainly will do. I would hazard the guess that there will be something going the R&L Roar way on that one, as it was a bit clumsy in execution down the inside, but also too, they were side by side, so sometimes you end up handcuffing yourself, stranding yourself down the inside, and you just can't slow it up in time. Accidents happen. Got to pay the price, though, for that. And unfortunately, looks like Stubenrausch is the one who paid the ultimate price, getting spun completely around. Now trying to make up some of those spots and makes a mistake of their own. Cars scatter, and was that the 20 that we just saw earlier involved in an incident? Was that them backwards and off of the racetrack? Cloppert behind the wheel. I think it was.
I think it was as well, unfortunately, and they were also the ones that missed their brakes by the look of it. And just the R&L Roar car maybe getting in its head a little bit too much there with the slipstream effect into the first corner. You have to remember to brake earlier, especially a lot earlier when you have speeds of that nature. And, well, it looked like they hit their braking zone at about the right time if they didn't have a car in front. And unfortunately, yeah, a little bit of a mistake there, and almost certainly a penalty will be heading the way, as that's going to be the Samantha Tan car. Michael Moaning, I'm pretty sure, making a mistake and allowing George Boothby through. Now, the question is, where is Fleischer in this conversation? The 7-Eleven is going to be battling for P1, it seems, at this time. A drive-through penalty as well for Milanowski. That is not what you want to see early on.
I don't think that's stewarding related. There's almost no way that they've got a drive-through already, and that would be the first penalty we would have seen. That has to be track limits in my mind, unless I'm going to be very much corrected. But I've seen a couple of cars already. We were talking during the Super Pole lap of how close Sherritt's lap was to being invalidated coming out of Ascari, and I've seen many cars vying for position, just going a little too deep and cutting these chicanes, sometimes in self-preservation, but the simulator doesn't care. It'll still give you track limit warnings for doing those things. It is very possible here that in the heat of battle, Malinowski has already got a drive-through for track limits, but we'll wait and see, make sure that's what's actually happening here.
Yeah, this is for position. This is Fleischer and Mooning battling for the lead of the silver class here. And the question is, who is going to give? As this isn't going to continue, I would imagine, for the next 45 minutes. Well, it certainly could. But somebody, I would imagine, is going to yield here because it's about knowing your battles. Who are you going to fight with, and how much time are you going to spend doing so? These two can pretty much, I don't want to say guarantee themselves a 1-2 at this point, barring mistakes, but they have a very nice gap ahead of third position right now, so I might want to see these two work together. However, trying to get two teammates to work together, Jesse, I'm sure you know, can be quite the futile effort.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. We're friends off the track. It's the same way with you, Mike, now. So we're friends off the track, but when the visor goes down, I don't have friends and I don't know you.
No, exactly. And but the thing is hopefully these two can communicate, because if they do race too hard, they might lose a position as a result. They might cost each other time as a result, and maybe even more contact. And that's just, you don't want to have that in a 3-hour race. Every time lost is so much amplified in these 3 hours compared to our next race that we have, the Nürburgring or Nordschleife 24 hours, where a drive-through penalty might be a drop in the bucket compared to a track like this.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost going to be required in a couple of weeks' time to work together, you know? What do we say? Help me help you, co-opetition. I think that's what's going on right here. You don't want to lose the lead ever, because you never know if you're going to see it again, but you're going to fight tooth and nail, I think, in this sort of case between these two. You may have noticed, I believe the Veloce Academy car, Fleischer, had a drive-through penalty off the start. That was for being out of position or out of order on the initial start. We see that a lot here, and that typically gets erased by the stewards. They typically don't punish you for doing it as long as you're not actually out of position. Sometimes the positioning it wants you to be in can be a bit finicky. Those penalties are almost always cleared. I don't think I've ever seen them not cleared here at SRO Esports competition. And so if you remember them having a drive-through and you're wondering why they're still up here and why they're fighting for the lead, that's what that was, and that is very common, if not automatic, that would be removed. Race control has adjudicated on the very first incident between car 51 and the 223 on lap 1, a 15-second time penalty given to the 223 for causing a collision. That also involved the 72 Renwelton car as well. That's the most likely of outcomes, the one we expected, wasn't it, really?
It is, but I think Mikhail Stachenko, he doesn't care that much. He said, 15-second penalty, I want him, I want more, I want blood. No, and Mikhail, he is, again, unfortunately, just bearing a result down in 15th position right now. And more incidents are rolling in, though. Cars 89 and 45 on lap 1, 10 seconds for the 89. Here, though, we go down the start-finish straight. This is going to be Fleischer to the inside. Who has the slipstream? The question is, where has that McLaren placed themselves ahead? It looks like it's giving the advantage to the Samantha Tan Mustang. Looking at the brakes here, down to the inside is going to be the Veloce Academy. And it seems the move is going to stick. Nicely done there. Time has favored Fleischer versus Mooning.
There you go. A change for the lead in the silver class. What does that do for the championship? Well, it all but gives the 711 Veloce Academy car the championship lead if looking at live points. That's what this battle does. It may not be the same way if the positions were reversed. And immediately Mooning back on the 711 as the Mustang isn't quite done yet.
No, it certainly is not. The race win is a sniff away, and he knows it. But of course, still 2.5 hours left to decide that. And still a pit stop, multiple pit stops as well. I'm pretty sure 60-minute stint timers is what we're rolling here. So these drivers will be required to come in at a certain time for probably a new set of tires. Monza is not the easiest track for tire wear. It's certainly not the most aggressive either. But I would imagine double stinting tires is going to be a little bit more of a loss of time than taking fresh rubber. And since we checked in with Mikhail, it seems he has made up one position here up into 14th. And up ahead of him is the... is Fabrizio Campanella in the 44 Lamborghini.
Not a complete disaster for Scuderia Ferrari, but not the start that they would have wanted. They would have certainly have enjoyed being even third right now, somewhere with the the Team MSI car, the 86 Mercedes, within their sight. That's clearly not what's happened here. They're going to be hoping for some sort of mistake by Team MSI, and that certainly can happen in this abbreviated format. I think we've already seen one car with a ACC assigned drive-through penalty, and if it can happen to Malinowski, it can happen to anyone, and it likely will continue to occur throughout the day. So for Statsenko and the entire Scuderia Ferrari 51 team, you got to keep your head level. You got to make up some of these spots, and yeah, it's not great overtaking Campanella and realizing that doesn't do anything for you championship-wise, but you got to say to yourself, keep digging, dig ourselves out of this hole, get back into the top 10, job number one, continue to climb through the top 10, do everything you can, let the chips fall where they may. For Nicholas Halben, though, everything's going to plan here. They avoided the major incident on the start. The car in front of them has a predetermined penalty from before race start here today due to an infraction. They're going to be leading the race. They could be champion-elect in 2.5 or so hours from now. Looking really good if you're the Mercedes Esports Team MSI car.
It does seem to be all coming up sunshine on this cloudy Italian day here at Monza, but for Nicholas Halben and the likes. But all in all, I think it's just down to the hard work that team has put in over this championship. Keep in mind that they are the most successful team with race wins. Round two, managing to take a race win, or round one, I should say, taking a race win at Suzuka, taking a race win as well at Spa-Francorchamps, P2 at Indy, and a P2 at Red Bull Ring. And they're looking to keep that result pretty much in check here, going for their third race win of this championship.
That is incredible. A 5-race championship, looking for a third one. You just saw their 10-second penalty on the screen there, the 717 and the was that the 20 or the 21? But you saw it, the penalty taken care of. There's actually 6 races in this championship. I've just recalculated as well. 6 races in the Intercontinental GT Challenge Esports Series. 2 24-hour races this year. Mike, the first one, Spa, was absolutely incredible. We learned about migratory birds from you. That was brilliant. And I worry about what I'm going to learn about Nürburgring and that particular region of the world.
I have pages and pages of fun facts about the Nordschleife, believe it or not. Either way. Mikhail here, we can see he is more looking at the championship battle, in my opinion, at this point with Dario Emulio and their team running in third position. This result, or running in second position in the standings at the time, battling against the third position. With the point separation up to the top, roughly 45 points separating those two, it is going to be a bit of a challenge for Mikhail and the Ferrari Scuderia team to take the win of this championship at this point.
Yeah, it's damage limitation. They've done that quite a bit. They're inside the top 15, but it's so much out of their hands. Dario Emulio doing it again, actually might be being sent upon by Fiala, who is re-caught back up. That's exactly what's gone on. Fiala has caught the Automobili Lamborghini car, and now the 5 is going to try and take that position back. And we've seen this out of the Lamborghinis before. Halfway through a stint, they're just not as sweet as they are at the start of the stint. They're super quick. One of the quickest cars, if not the quickest, is the Automobili Lamborghini at the start, but they just sort of fade back. The Mercedes AMGs are just more level throughout the entire stint, and especially the Williams Esports car trying to make up some of the spot. This is a battle we've seen before exactly like this, almost halfway through a stint, 65-minute stint limit, by the way, 2 pit stops to give today. And it's the same thing we've seen all season. Lamborghini falling off a little bit, Mercedes coming alive, or perhaps just not falling off as much.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's I think not falling off as much is the case. The Lamborghini is quite harsh on its tire, where there's another incident to be reported there between a lot of cars. And looks like the warning for unsporting behavior for lots of cars, not turning on auto lights as required. So that was clearly stated in the rules, and it seems some cars have gone against that, and it has resulted in a warning, thankfully, not any form of time penalty.
That's very interesting. I wonder how they even check for that to begin with. But that obviously it's in the rules. I've read that myself. But I've always been curious how they know if the lights are on. Obviously you can see them, but still, that's interesting. So the lights have to be on the cars. We know that. But the specificity of auto lights being on, which makes a lot of sense, I think we can all agree, because it is cloudy, it's overcast, it's morning time, visibility isn't quite as great as it will be a little bit later on in the race even, but even still, that's a weird penalty. That's going to go straight to the top of the board for me for strangest penalty. It wasn't technically a penalty, it's a warning. Everybody will be attentive to that, of course, and now if you don't have auto lights on, you're not going to be able to turn that on now, as that's not a toggleable thing, and that you'll just have to turn the lights on manually and hope that you have the lights bound, which I don't know why you wouldn't do. Either way, it's going to be a longer pit stop as you fiddle through the options trying to get those things on. Very interesting indeed. Into between cars, 258 and the 224 on lap 1. 15-second time penalty to car 224 for causing a collision.
Yeah, and definitely a couple penalties being handed out early on here, but one thing I'm keeping an eye on, at least in terms of just stats here for the night, is these cars that are quickest in a straight line. And in terms of the fastest out on track right now, well, it's actually a tie between Studenbrock and as well as Castorino down in, where is Castorino, in fact? That is a great question as we look for it. Down in 17th position for the number 38. Definitely not quite what the Coach Dave team was looking for at this stage. But still quickest in a straight line is something to say.
You wouldn't happen to have a fact in that notebook of yours about the fastest bird, would you? Fastest bird in the straight line?
I don't happen to know the fastest bird in the straight line, no, but I do know that Monza hosted at one point in time back in 1971 the closest race in Formula One history, where at the end Peter Gethin started the final lap of the race in P4. He went on to take the win ahead of Ronnie Peterson by 0.01 of a second. In fact, the top 5 was only separated by 0.061 of a second.
There you have it. Fun facts here at Monza. Of course, this racetrack has hosted fantastic racing all the way back to the 20s, the 1920s. For you youngsters among us, over 100 years of racing heritage at this racetrack. And yeah, it's changed a little bit over the years, but not nearly as much as some other racetrack. It still has its original character. It still has some of the original corners as well. And the humongous banking that isn't really used anymore, still prevalent off in the distance, as you can see on some of the camera angles in the background. Mike Niles, how much would I have to pay you to get to the top of the banking here at Monza?
Ooh, honestly, I'd like to try. I'd do that. I'd just do it for free. I'd want to try it. I want to see if I could sprint to the top. See, if anyone's seen any pictures of the actual old banking, it is steep. And it's quite the mission to get up to the top, and if you've seen anything roll down it, it happens very fast. So very entertaining. This is a track, again, rife with history, and one that I would love to find myself at one point in time in the world. Definitely a bucket list track to go to.
Definitely rough now, the banked parts of the racetrack that exist. They're not maintained necessarily, as far as I've been told, and it would be very rocky to try and drive anything over them, but still a part of the racetrack's history. And of course, it's not just one layout. There are many other layouts here that they run. There's a shortcut from where pit straight, or where the pit lane ends, to the back straight as well at Ascaria, as far as a shorter track is concerned. I think touring cars have raced on that once upon a time, but nevertheless, it's a track that has 100 plus years now of history, but even still has all of its original character. The chicanes added, of course, to slow the cars down in the name of safety, and of course the cars just getting faster all the time kind of ignore the chicanes a little bit. There were a few years where the chicane went to the left, now it goes to the right. It's a whole thing, but you see racing out there on the racetrack, a little bit of a bonk there by Steuben Roush as they're trying to overtake the Porsche, while the Porsche continues to make up ground. Cardinal does And now they're on the back of Prendergast. But, Mike, I hear you have an update on the 5 Williams car.
Yeah, the 5 Williams car seems to have had a little bit of a self-inflicted mistake. We're currently waiting on a replay for that one, and it will be up very, very shortly. Oh, there's a thought there from the Porsche of Cardinale onto Pendergast. Now, Pendergast here is being a bit of a bottleneck. Oh, as he is going to be a little bit slow. Still a 30-second penalty to be had there for the Audi, getting in the way now of these drivers as we see the Visceral Esports try to get by the Porsche, but the Porsche has nowhere to go themselves.
I don't know what Cardinal put in his oatmeal this morning, but whatever it was, needs to have that every single day. Killer instinct in the 258 Porsche. That car is rocketing up through some of these positions. They were at the end of this train a little while ago, and they're picking them up and putting them down.
Trying to at the moment. Let's see, when is Pendergast going to come in? Well, it doesn't need to make a pit stop within the next 3 laps. This is not a penalty that has to be served immediately, so they will probably be waiting till the next pit phase, which is going to be a bit of a thorn in the side there for Cardinale, and hopefully they can make it by soon. But let's take a look here at the replay that happened to that Williams machine as we launch ourselves onto the start-finish straight here. Actually, hold on, just trying to catch an eye. It seems the Porsche is not going to be close enough to make a move. This, though, let's see. What has happened to the AMG? Already all sorts of out of shape. Catches some air on the exit of Ascari and finds themselves spun around, and as a result have dropped down to P18.
Look at Cardinal! Look at Cardinal, a huge run down into the first chicane, and they're going to get it done. Prendergast has nothing to do but fall in line. Luckily loses the one position. That 35 worth seconds of penalties is going to hinder them even further, but what a move by Cardinal. That was a gutsy move, and now that puts them at the front of this train. Oh no, and the 45 of Visceral. Stubenrauch has gotten into the back of Prendergast, and that's not what they wanted at all. And here comes Kolosov in the 789.
Yeah, Kolosov here trying to get by. He doesn't want to deal with these silver plate drivers as much as he wants to get up into the fight with the white plates. That was a little bit of a mistake, though, from the 45, late onto the brakes and clobbers into the back of the Audi. That will be affecting that rear diffuser for sure, and probably the front splitter as well. Some repairs needing to be made in the next 30 minutes. It is a 65-minute stint timer, so around the 1 hour and 55 minutes is when we're going to see the drivers come in for their stops. This battle, though, is yet to cease, sort of an unceasing top, might you say, down the start-finish straight, but this isn't really for position, Jesse, as they continue to squabble this one out.
Fleischer has all but left Moaning in the ST Racing Ford Mustang, and is this the too deep? It isn't. It was a well-executed move by Dario. Automobili Lamborghini up another spot, and that will put them into 7th. That doesn't get them additional points, of course, 2 different classes, but that does dispense of your pole sitter in silver. And now the next on the list will be the leader in silver, Fleischer, in that 711 car for Veloce Academy. Picking them up, putting them down. This car started on the 10th row of the grid, folks, this Lamborghini. They are doing their very best Team MSI impression today is Lamborghini.
Trying their absolute heart out right now, and I gotta say, that was a really, really smart decision from Michael Mooning. He basically, what we saw there in the first chicane was he let Emilio through. That's why we thought he was going deep, maybe he outbroke himself. No, he knew what he was doing. He saw the writing on the walls and knows his battle, and he says, well, you know, maybe Dario, he's quicker than me. He did catch me by about a second a lap for a good while. Maybe I can use him as a bit of a front marker here, some slipstream, a bit of a bench marker to keep your pace at hand, which is, it's obviously easier to follow than it is to lead. Dario, I don't think he thinks that necessarily, but you can already see it's a bit of an issue for Mooning to hold on to the back of Amulo.
Yeah, Moaning is falling off here for ST Racing. I don't know if we've seen quite this much fall off. We've seen that car up near the front of the field, not just the silver field, but the front of the field full stop. But today, that car is falling back. It's like it's got some kind of tire degradation. Could it be potentially pressure loss from hitting some of these curbs? Something else to consider here is some of these curbs, well, they're anti-cut. I think it's self-explanatory what they're meant to do, and it can cause pressure loss. And I'd be wondering if maybe something like that has happened to the number 28 Ford Mustang, because This is uncharacteristic of them. They have hung on to these spots for every race that we've seen them up inside the top 10. So very strange indeed. Let's take you back and show you the number 45 and a little bit of drama that they got into. See exactly what went wrong down here in the corner. You're going to see the Mercedes get in there. It was indeed the 20 that spun them. The 20, as far as we know, had their own incident a few laps ago, and that essentially reset that entire pack back to where they were, for better or worse, at the time. We've seen a couple of dives go wrong today, Mike, and that's just the luck of the draw, and that's the way it works around here, rather unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. And you know, one of the things when it comes to luck of the draw or even pure skill alone that I would love to catch a replay on, note to our wonderful production behind the scenes. Shout out to Ryan Gill and Tom Bryant on the cameras and on the production. And of course, big shout out to all of our stewards behind the scene, Remco Ottens, Alexa, Scotty, Stefan, everybody that makes these possible here at SRO. We thank you. And of course, all of our wonderful sponsors. But on that, of course, one of the things that I would love to catch is that overtake that Cardinale had on the Audi. When that happened, something has happened in ACC that I've never seen before. Cardinale is currently the fastest car in a straight line at 288 kph in a Porsche 992. Yeah. How? Yeah. Faster than a Ferrari, faster than a Lamborghini, sure. Faster than a McLaren, might I add you.
The big stick is the Mustang. Faster than
and faster than the Mustang. Yes, exactly.
Is incredible. Can you explain to the folks at home why it is unusual for a Porsche to be fast in a straight line?
Well, the Porsche here, I'm glad you asked. The Porsche has a little bit of a different engine and different engine configuration compared to the rest of the cars. The 992 GT3R has a 4-liter flat 6, naturally aspirated, no turbo. It's a pretty small engine. Now, it does generate about 502 brake horsepower with about 470 Newton meters of torque. But you compare that to the McLaren 720S, which is again, a 4-liter twin turbo engine, so the same engine size, but has 2 turbos, and it's a V8, strapped to the side of it, and the McLaren with about 710 brake horsepower and 770 Newton meters of torque. In terms, obviously, BOP is what allows these cars to be so equal at the end of the day, which is why I love GT racing, and I will always say that. Seeing a McLaren race a Porsche, race an Audi, race a Lamborghini, race an Audi as we see ahead of us, this is what we're here for when it comes to these multi-car races.
Sure is. These two going at it. The Brabham powered by Eau Rouge, and flashing of the lights there by the Visceral Esports 45, Steuben Roush behind the wheel. Typically in motorsport, you can assume that a Porsche is going to be lights out agile and quick in the corners, and not so much on the dead straights where horsepower is required. We have seen a renaissance of that recently where that is not the case. Of course, custom balancer performance here in SRO Esports helps that a little bit, but just in general, the balance of the Porsche is a lot more neutral than we've known it for a long time, and it's helped it compete on the straights, and it's helped to the efficacy of that particular manufacturer. And to the frustration of anyone else, if you have that old way of thinking in your head of, well, it's a Porsche, it can't pass me on the straight, Cardinal, one of the cars, is certainly proving that they can get beside you and get by you at the end of a straightaway. Porsche, typically known for great brakes, great turning ability. Also now, not bad in a straight line, a Swiss Army knife of a race car these days. Yeah, and particularly good out of the corner. And we have Ask and You Shall Receive. We got a little bit of a replay. Let's see that overtake. It's not gonna be the most exciting overtake, I'll just say it right now, but let's see it though, because it is to me. So look at the momentum the Porsche has here. That is a V10, 5.2 liter V10 Audi that just got smoked on the brakes by the Porsche. Absolutely incredible driving. Yeah, you can tell we're nerds up here in the box. We love stuff like that, Mike and me. That is amazing. It's amazing because a few years ago, folks, that would have never been possible. That is so cool.
Yes, I love to see that. That got my heart rolling there. Oh, man. We got more to come, though. Of course, that's not all the action. We're not even an hour into this race yet. Look at the penalty board as well, as the stewards have had their fair share of work throughout this session. And looks like, holy smokes, that was a very close call there for the 45.
Yeah, a lot of cars going wide, exiting Ascari, most of them keeping it within the track bounds. Some of them have not. I've got a couple of track limit warnings in my head for some of the top competitors just early on into the race. We saw a couple of cars, including the Williams number 5, having their issues earlier on behind the Automobile Lamborghini car, and that's sort of a problem exiting Ascari. That's where you get a lot of your track limit warnings, whether you're pressing to try and beat somebody down the straight into the Parabolica, or if you can't sight your entry and exit, you get up over those huge anti-cut sausage curbs and you get yourself into trouble. And the worst of days, especially for the 5 Mercedes that we saw, you turn into a bucking Bronco and the car completely turns on you and it could ruin your day. And that will not likely be the last time we see a car do that here today. You got to be careful. Following too closely can lead you to a path of self-destruction. We've already seen it once. How many more times might we see it today?
Yeah, unfortunately, it might be a little bit more than just self-destruction, and that's never the destruction you want to see. This is Morera, though, trying to make a move. In fact, makes it look easy, in fact. Gets by Ramone without much of an issue. I'm not sure if that was Ramone letting that one happen. I don't think it was. I think that was just a very nice send, though. As we move up the field, looking at Arthur Kramer here as he continues his fight along. I'm not sure side by side. The BMW is going to be ahead. That's Stachenko behind. No, that's not. That's a Aston Martin behind as we are looking at. That must be a back marker. Stachenko. But there was a question in chat as well as who is the second fastest in the straight line. It is Castorino, who is it's set that on lap 2, by the way. We haven't had many fastest laps being set just yet. I think the last lap in my top 10 to be set was on lap 18 from Alaqua in the number 96 BMW.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I kind of expect that from the Ferrari to be quite quick. Of course, you get the draft effect. If you're in the middle of the pack like Castorino is, you have the benefit of not only the wake of the car immediately in front of you, but the wake of everyone in front of you and behind you. If you're in the pocket, you go incredibly quick. Orlando Rat's trying to be incredibly quick. The JP Motorsport driver trying to hold off Ramone, and I don't think they're going to be able to do it. Nope, back single file. The fight may be from behind as well as everybody's piling in. The Mustang there of Rockmont, Sentima in the field, as well as this group has been in many different order thus far, but they've never broken up. It's like a good music group that sticks together throughout the generations. They may change position, but they're still all together fighting for those same spots.
Yeah, but as Bon Jovi once said, I think some of our drivers here, Ramone in particular, are living on a prayer. This is going to be a bit of a hard-pressed issue.
45 minutes in, huh?
You know, it is what it is. I got more to come. Either way, Ramone, he is struggling, it seems, to hold on right now. Obviously, we saw Morera get by with ease and already has pulled over a second of a gap. Rotz wants to make that dream become a reality himself and try to get it done sooner rather than later. But the AMG, as it lumbers in the rearview mirror at 296, doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
Nope, sure doesn't. The problem is that when you take the lead and don't have the ability to drive away on the next straight and somebody has a look on you, you have to go defensive. That compromises your line, that slows you up, and you're all back together anyway. And that's exactly the problem here with this group. Orlando Rat's continuing to exemplify that by being under constant fire from everybody. Rockmont now in the 818 Ford Mustang trying to out-drag them down the straight. It's strength versus strength here. The Mustang should have a slight advantage, but it will unlikely be enough to get them fully by. They almost clear them, but they don't. Down into the first chicane as they go side by side. Everybody else pairs off behind them. A little bit of contact indeed. Malinowski there with one of the BMWs in the background. Orlando Rats holds though and will hold on to that position. We saw a race control message there for Porco in the number 6 Lamborghini. That was a drive-through for an unsafe rejoin following an accident. Again, another penalty we don't see often, but it's a harsh one because it's a huge safety violation.
Yeah, that's something drivers, and if you are a rookie driver out there listening, this is something that you definitely need to listen to is check when you rejoin the track. It's one of the most important things, and even at an esports level, it seems that some people may have a couple issues with that. We're all human, we all make mistakes at the end of the day, but that is one of the mistakes that is very avoidable. You just check the circuit before you rejoin the track. Be patient. Don't hurry up and don't say, oh, I need to get back on track because I crashed. No, you crashed. You need to wait to get back out on track and let the people that didn't crash through first.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things to learn in sim racing is patience. That's the hardest thing to learn in life. Honestly, a little bit of life lesson from Jesse Lee here. Patience is a virtue. It's hard to learn. A lot of people say it comes with age, but I think it can also come with experience, especially in sim racing. You get more patient, you understand the sport, you understand the game within the game as well. And it's so easy, isn't it, Mike, to get your head wrapped around, oh, I've just been in an incident, I've got to minimize the damage here, and you make a bad situation worse. You cannot allow that to occur. You've got to just pick up the pieces, take a deep breath, do everything in a safe and calm manner, be aware of your surroundings, do it the right way, lest you get an even worse penalty. In this case, a drive-through. Again, making a bad situation worse.
Yeah, and it comes down to just thinking sometimes, taking a second and just thinking, saying, okay, I crashed, now what? Rather than saying, okay, I crashed, now back out on circuit, just say, okay, I crashed, now what? Examine the situation. How bad is it? What do I need to do? Let's see, though, what's about to happen here. Rotz is finally under threat from the Ford Mustang, and I think this is going to be Rockmont making it through, but no! A lovely defense from Rotz. That's going to compromise Rockmont now and allow Abe Santema in, and through Lesmo 1, Abe Santema gets by. In fact, it's not going to be just one. It looks... No, he doesn't get by. Wait, no, he did. Oh, this is absolutely amazing.
Santema gets through in the 224 BMW. Maciej Malinowski, the ultimate opportunist, makes up one of those spots as well. That car, remember, the reason they're back here, they had a drive-through penalty. It never showed up on the race report list, so that had to have been track limits. 15 minutes into the race, you get 3 warnings, and on the 4th time asking, it turns into a drive-through for violating track limits, and I think that's what's happened to the number 39 McLaren. That's why they're back there, but they used that perfectly to make up a spot, and rather to the chagrin and the unfortunate of some of the other cars around them. Romagnoli here in the 164, the Restec Ripardo Corsa car, finds themselves inside the top 10, under threat from camera behind, but that 89 BMW, they of course, the BS competition car, they have a 10-second penalty of their own. Meanwhile, looking a little bit further up the field, Jordan Sherritt's led every lap thus far, but that will not always be the case. Nicholas Halbin and Team MSI, Mercedes Esports, they're about 7 seconds, we'll call it 6 3/4 seconds behind them, and that will not undo a 30-second penalty for Sherritt. I'm just trying to figure out how far Sherritt's going to fall off the podium for sure. They could be outside the top 10 after leading every lap thus far with that 30-second penalty.
They could be outside of the top 20, to be completely honest. Here at Monza, we're looking at, for a stop with a tire change, we're looking at roughly 66 seconds, give or take, for a stop. That's with time loss, with tire change, 30 seconds remaining stationary in pit lane, so just over a minute. Yeah, I think around P18, P20, somewhere is where they're going to fall. You can see every single driver pretty much has a second to the car behind them. So makes math somewhat easy, but beyond that, it's going to be a bit of a hard equation for Jordan Sherritt there to more accept than it is to figure out the answer to.
Math expert Ryan Gill has told me they're going to be outside the top 15, or at least they would do if they pitted now, but do bear in mind, 65-minute stint limit, so everybody out there on the racetrack now, with the exception of cars that have already come down pit lane for whatever reason, like Malinowski, who served a drive-through penalty, that does reset your driver's stint limit, so they could technically go longer if they, drive-throughs do not reset the stint limiter. I could have sworn that all you have to do was break the beam coming into pit lane. I could be incorrect. If it is a penalty, if you drive through without a penalty, it may, but if you're serving a drive-through, that is mandatory. It does not, apparently. You learn something new every day. But the long and the short of it is everybody in the field has about 13 minutes left on their driver's stint limit. They will come down, put a new driver in the car, you would almost assume. And since every car has just about 3 drivers, everybody will get to drive for about an hour or so. So we're about 13 minutes away from pit stops. Any reason, Mike, why you wouldn't go to the maximum here?
No. I mean, yes, I suppose actually you can pit around the 55-minute mark in your stint. So you can pit within the next 3 minutes if you want to technically have a seamless stop strategy, because it's 65 minutes. That gives you a little bit of play time, so you have a little bit of window in your strategy. But more or less, I'm pretty sure we're just going to be seeing all these drivers maximize their stint timer and try to take advantage of that. We'll see, though. The undercut might work, so I wouldn't be surprised to see some drivers maybe coming around the 2:03 mark, the 2-minute mark, and maybe even the 2:05 mark, but I think the 2:05 even that's a little bit risky, just due to the fact if there is an extra lap at the end, you do want to be playing for that. And oh no, as Michael Romanoli has had a tag from behind, the lightest tags of the century, but it was enough to unsettle the car. And to be fair, respect to the BMW, they did let off the throttle there and allow them to keep the position, but regardless, that's a couple positions lost.
BS Plus Competition has had a campaign to forget. This has not been their season. This has not been their year here in SRO Esports Competition in 2024. We're so used to seeing that car in the top handful of front runners, and it just seems like they have had frustration after frustration on this season. Flashes of brilliance, of course, but today just rather adding on to that feeling. Another little contact there sends them back a few spots. That's all to the plan of Michael Statsenko, who now finds themselves 11th in that 51. Remember, they were the car hard done by the lap 1 turn 1 contact after starting inside the top 3, starting P2 in fact. So they're almost back inside the top 10, trying to salvage this championship. Bear in mind, if you're just now joining us, this is the way the championship in Pro stacks up. If the 86 Mercedes finishes in front of the 51 Ferrari, the championship is all but done and dusted. If it finishes the opposite direction, we have a fight on our hands for the finale in 2 weeks at the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring.
Yeah, and to be honest, the 86 car is looking pretty good here for the win tonight. I don't want to be that guy, but they're doing really well, and it's going to be hard to stop them. They're a team that doesn't make too many mistakes. True. So it's going to have to require some luck from the other teams out there, and with 45 points, or with 40 points separating them, wishful thinking. And Mikhail Stachenko on damage limitation, Dario Amulo in P7 for the time being. Those are really the only two that have a chance to mathematically contend with the championship. I think we're going to be seeing the battle for P2 next week, potentially.
I think, the battle for P2, 3, and 4, I reckon. Fiala has brought the number 5 Williams Mercedes down pit lane. That's a scheduled pit stop, though early, some 10 minutes early. So we were wondering if anybody would try that. A couple of other cars have done that. Fidel Moreira's in as well. Porco's also in, but they're a couple of laps down from the field here. So a couple of cars on the lead lap have elected to come in 10 minutes early and get their stop done. Now, the only reason I could think you're doing that, Mike, is you're running the race backwards, which you typically do with a longer race. But even still, it's possible to do that, meaning that a lot of these other cars, if not all these cars, are going to have a 45-minute final stint. Williams number 5, they'll have a full 65-minute final stint because they're running the race backwards.
Yeah, so they might make up some positions in the short term, but long term, are their tires going to be able to hold enough to defend? That's the question that they're going to have to be asking themselves, and to be honest, I don't really know the answer to. Fiala is going to be the one, though, the guinea pig, might you say, to try that out, and as long as they exit pit lane after 2 minutes and 5 seconds, they will be okay, barring if there's an extra lap. It's a risky strategy to go this early, in my opinion. I'd like to see one more lap waited before they start to pull the trigger. But, you know, sometimes the risks, the strategy, they pay off. And if you're down in these P15, P20, you know, in that range, why not go for it, is my opinion. There's no reason. You're not going to lose anything. You might as well go for the gamble and try to go for maybe a gold, maybe even a silver or bronze. You never know. It's better than where you are currently.
More cars coming into pit lane. Campanella pits out of the top 20, the 44 Lamborghini. Prendergast pits the 62 Audi. They've got 35 seconds of penalties. Dennis Alacqua here in the 96 for ATS Corsa. They've got one of my favorite liveries in the field. I don't know what it is. I like the graffiti art style almost on that car. It just makes sense. It looks good. It's a fun looking car, but they're not having quite as much fun as Aviles in the 52 Ferrari behind them is hounding them for the 31st position. Mentioned earlier, nearly everybody on the entry list we showed you prior to the start of today's race is here, and boy, do you feel it when you're about 30th.
Yeah, you certainly do. And Aliqua here, looking at the number 96 BMW, standings-wise, they're currently running in 18th position overall in the championship. So looking to find some points out there tonight and maybe make up the ground. As we know, the silver category is so extremely close in points. One good results finish might result in 5 to even 8 positions gained, I would say, in the standings.
There you go. I mean, it's all to play for. Seriously, the silver championship, as Arthur Kammer has brought the BS competition car down pit lane. Keep in mind, anybody with a time penalty will have that time penalty assessed on the pit stop they are about to take. So in addition to sitting in the pit stall to get the fuel put in, to get the tires in, to get the driver in, after all that is complete, they will stay in the pit box for an additional 10 seconds in the case of BS competition. 15 seconds for DeBon, and Santima will have an additional 15 seconds. You get the picture that they will be sedentary. So that will mean that all these cars are going to drop down the order, which means all the positions they've made up, they're going to have to make up a second time. Purgatory is the word I would use.
Yeah, and any drivers that you were used to and getting to know the names of, well, congratulations, you no longer now know them, because we have new drivers out behind the cars. We have Alvin Wong for the Drive Just Boys Sim Magic, or Sim Magic, I think is what it is, in the number 996, running currently in P20. Now that position will change as more drivers make their stops. We have DeBons, who has that 15-second penalty. They certainly will be falling behind the likes of this McLaren, so that'll be a position for free, and a few more as well. Looking up ahead, though, is going to be Cardinale, one of the cars that I think is one of the more exciting ones out there on track in terms of battles and maybe more prospects for some more entertainment here tonight.
It very well could be. This is an interesting car as well. The Drive Just Boys Sim Magic 996. Alvin Wong behind the wheel of that car right now. They are 20th, and I think, what are they? 5th, 6th, 7th. They're in the top 10 in their class, and that's huge for a team that's 21st in the championship that only has a handful of points to their name. One really good finish like this for a team like the 996, that can catapult you into or around the top 12, top 10 or so, and you never know what that may pay on the other end of the season, meaning after the final race. You have another good finish, maybe you're inside the top 10, maybe you're a little bit further up than that. So it's not over by a long shot for a lot of these silver teams. Whether you're fighting for a point or you're fighting for a championship, that's where the real action is, in my opinion, in the silver class, fighting against each other. They're not always fighting against each other, are they, Mike? Really, they're fighting against the pro cars as well, because they're all scattered throughout the field. There's nothing in the rules or regulations that says silver cars cannot race against pros and vice versa. And that's exactly how they like it. That's exactly how it is. And we see that more often than not, week in and week out.
Yeah, we just saw it, in fact, right in front of our eyes. We're currently looking at Amedeo Castorino in the number 38 Coach Dave Academy car. Amedeo is going to be upset at me for mispronouncing his name. That's okay. We've been working on Italian, in case no one cares. That's okay. Amedeo's been trying to teach me some Italian, and I've been trying to teach him a little bit of English. So I'd love to see him out there grinding at the wheel. He wasn't the most excited coming into this race, as he's sitting P6 in the championship. But overall, I think I was a little bit of an esports driver's bluff. It's so hard to get information out of any esports driver. They're just not, what's the word, Jesse? They're not the most social or most open or willing to share their strategies. I'm not sure what the word is for it, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, I once asked a sim racing team what their plan was for a specific race, and I was told that I could be told, but then I would have to be dealt with, and I was not willing to bet that, so we sort of let that go. Jordan Sherritt has come into the pit lane, and they will serve not only their pit stop, but their 30-second penalty that was assessed prior to the race today due to an infraction, and that will drop them presumably outside the top 10 and possibly outside the top 15. Could we dare see them at the back end of the top 20? Perhaps so, as they free fall through the field. All the rest of the field have about another lap or so to comfortably come around the racetrack and do their stop. Nicholas Halban takes the lead for Mercedes-AMG Esports Team MSI, your championship leader, leading the race today over Burnt in the number 72 Rinwelton Ferrari. George Boothby in the number 40 Veloce Vexed McLaren now assumes third place, but they are hunting the Rinwelton Ferrari for that spot as we speak. Several cars, I would say just about half the field, has come down pit lane right now. They have not chanced this first stop. They've gotten off those tires, surely installed new tires, and almost assuredly installed new drivers as well.
Yeah, and George Boothby, in case anyone was curious, averaging roughly a 147.0 in this stint, and Leon Burnt, he is averaging roughly a 147.1. Now, they come in simultaneously. That makes sense because they have no choice at this point, but it does surprise me a little bit. Everybody pretty much has to come in right now, otherwise they'll be risking risking staying out past their stint timer. That car that went by, I think, will be okay. It's going to be very close. If they have a spin, they might not be okay. But they might have also made a pit stop. We're going to be seeing pretty much everybody come in for their one mandatory stop now. Everybody getting a fresh set of rubber on, and then pretty much, well, a reset of the action, more or less, Jesse.
There are a couple of cars that are pressing their luck. Everybody in. There's still 2 minutes left. Actually, less than that now. But a lap around here is a 140-something, so they could go around and press their luck. A couple of cars have. Magnani's done it. I think Castorino's done it. But just about everybody else has come in. Now, cars that are pitting right here, this group with Mache, they don't have a choice. They cannot go back around. But the cars that just came in prior to this group made a choice to either come in or not. Nicholas Halban is in and out already. Everybody else now has to come in. They cannot do another lap. They don't have enough time. And we have seen in this series a couple of teams get it wrong and violate that pit stop timer. And ACC will absolutely immediately slap a penalty on you for violating a stint limit of more than 65 minutes. New drivers, new tires. What can they do? Will we continue to see the Automobili Lamborghini climb? Remember, they kind of fell off halfway through that stint, but we're used to that with that car. Will they be brilliant again as they continue to climb up the ranks? How far can Scuderia Ferrari climb up? And how big of a lead, this is the big question, how big of a lead will the MSI Mercedes have once we all cycle through? These are all the questions I have.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one. Here we have Abuladze trying to find the back of Pirella. Not going to be making anything just yet. New drivers out on track. They're going to feel each other out, start to get a vibe on where their strengths, where their weaknesses are.
As far as we expected them to. They're only 13.
Oh, you're right. That is the 255 Aston. Yeah, okay. That is not end with fastest lap still, so the pace is going to be in their favor. No, you're 100% right. Great call on that. They only are in 13th. I was expecting significantly more, but of course that is, due to the fact that other cars have had penalties, but still 13th. Not a bad result whatsoever, and still a recoverable drive, I would say, for the 255 competition car. Now, one thing though, Jesse, before we end this pit phase, is we have to get a fun fact in during the pit phase, of course, as that's just my rule that I've just came up with, I guess.
You certainly did make that up, yes.
But we're going to roll with it right now.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This track I mentioned at the top of the broadcast is set within royal surroundings. Now, what did I mean when I said that? Well, Monza was actually founded, or well, should I say it was commissioned. It's the part of the Royal Villa Park of Monza, which was commissioned by Napoleon's stepson, Eugene Beauharnais. Apologies to the French people in chat. I know there are a couple.
What's that? You want to try that again?
Beauharnais, as we
goes
see.
for a move down into the zone, Pirella, but they're going to overrun the corner as Abalazzi, and that's going to allow Pirella back through effectively, or will it do? As it looks like Abalazzi, nope, they are going to yield that position, going to the outside of the Curva Grande, and that's exactly what you want to see. He's not going to give it up easily. He's going to try and lose as little time as possible. Now, that's a race car driver right there. Abalazzi realizing they had to give it up, but refusing to give up additional time on the failed move. You were, are you speaking of Napoleon Bonaparte's son?
Stepson, yes.
Stepson, interesting.
Yes, during the French occupation of northern Italy back in 1808, the park is 668 hectares and is the largest walled park in Europe.
Clearly, whoever wrote that has never been to Disneyland. Or
Is there a Disneyland in Europe?
You're a Disneyland.
Fair enough. I didn't know.
That's a joke.
Anyways.
That's a joke. That's interesting. My question remains the same every week, and every time you give me a fun fact. How and why do you know that?
I don't know. Just research. It was just one of the things that came up in my research. I don't know what else to say.
Well, I got a fun fact for you folks at home that also pertains to the racetrack. This place wasn't originally called Monza. This circuit was called Milano, Circuito di Milano, when it originally opened up. A few years later, it changed its name to Autodromo di Monza, and well, it's now called Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, but originally it was Milano. I would try to get away with that today. Try to get away with calling it Milano now, as Abalazzi is making the move again. This time stays on the racetrack, and I dare say it's going to stick. Up to P11 is Abalazzi in their quest to retake the lead, almost back inside the top 10.
A little bit of deja vu there, but managing to make it stick this time around. Second time is a charm. Let's see if the same can be said here, at least first attempt for the JP Motorsports of Sasha. A little bit too far back, though, is my first proptosis, and it seems to be the case there. A little bit of bumping and banging between the Veloce and the, what looked like to be Visceral Esports Lamborghini. It is, as they come out of the first chicane, now heading down towards the second. Seems like we got a little bit of elbows out racing. Let's see who's going to take the opportunity. The 26 lines up in the slipstream, very tight to the bumper. Are they going to pull out? Yes, they are. Down to the inside. It's going to turn to the out after a little bit. Clobbers that inside curb. Gets a good run, though, on the exit. Launches themselves now down towards the first Ravazza, or excuse me, the first Lesmo, but isn't going to be able to make it stick. Flash of the headlights out of frustration.
If I was Lee there, I would have clinched a little bit, seeing Wassner get up over that curb. So many times that happens, and it spits the car back out onto the track. Lee gave room, but it wasn't that Wassner wanted to hit that curb that hard. He was just trying to be as far to the left as humanly possible in the second chicane, and ended up going over the huge sausage curb. Didn't get fully spat back out. Was well under control with Sasha Wassner for JP Motorsport. No harm, no foul. And Lee not only lives to fight another day, gets away just a little bit from that initial incident. Arnold and Zerbin right in front of them, going at it side by side. Arnold installed in the number 39 McLaren, and looks like they took that spot, or Zerbin took that spot from Arnold just in front there. That was very impressive.
Yeah, 5-second penalty, though, for Zerbin. That was picked up, I think, in the last stint, and will be need to serve at the next phase. But you can see right there the positions have been updated, and for now it is going to be the goal of walking up the road 5 seconds to try to maybe catch the back of Naldi.
Yeah, we've seen that, though, already, where penalties in this season, they can be negated if you have the pace and the speed, and they can be overcome. And of course, a couple of cars we're looking for to overcome their penalties: the 255 competition car, the 51, not necessarily a penalty, but being spun as it's a punishment regardless if it's your fault or not, and we're trying to continue to work through that as well. If you are the Mercedes-AMG Esports Team MSI car. If you are leading this race right now, and you're their manager, Mike, what are you saying to them right now? Because if it's me, I'm going, don't do anything.
Yeah, I'm probably saying, oh, what a save from Voshner. Incredible drift there. A little bit of contact, unfortunately, but managing to make the best of a bad situation. Rejoins ahead of Gamble.
The 96, that's Gamble actually. The ultimate opportunist is able to sneak their way in there, and they're going to go for two. They're going to try and get them both here heading up to Scari, and they've done it. Look, Gamble in the 717 has taken their BMW up into the 25th place and left Wassner and Lee for dead here. Looks like Wassner is able to get around Lee, but at what cost, as it nearly, if not certainly came to blows in Lesmo 1 that time.
Yeah, it seems like they're 2 stones and 1 bird. Well, I guess 2 stones and 1 bird. Sure, not close enough. Either way.
Didn't you tell me you were giving somebody English lessons earlier?
Yeah, you know, it's the same difference, right? It sounded better in my head. But anyways, with the question that you had asked about if I'm the team principal of the race leader, I would be off comms completely at this point and just allowing my drivers to drive. Maybe occasionally checking in, asking, saying, hey, you need anything, everything good. But if they're not asking me directly for anything, then I'm probably just going to let them drive the race, because these guys, they know what they're doing. They've been around the parts here at Monza once or twice throughout their days. They know how to contend with a little bit of lap traffic, and, maybe updating them in case any penalties do arise that matter or anything like that. But keep in mind how much of a margin they have in the points. It's just about not bottling it, really, for the MSI AMG team.
Let the racers race, says Mike Nouse. I would just, heed that they not make any mistakes. Don't go for moves. You've got a gap. Just be nice and calm and cool. Don't let off, because you often make mistakes when you do that, but just don't take any unnecessary risk. We saw the final warning for the 45, and immediately after that, a 5-second penalty for car 45 as well. Been involved in a couple of incidents, so they have exhausted their warnings today, and that has led to a 5-second penalty. And perhaps to the frustration of Zerbin, they were not in the car when that happened, but because of when the penalties come out, they're the ones that are going to have to pay the piper at the end of this stint. You love that. It's the same thing as if I was in the car, Mike, and I got 3 track limit warnings, and you got in the car, went over the limits once, and had to deal with the drive-through penalty. That's kind of what that feels like from behind the driver's seat. Jonathan Riley for Scuderia Ferrari looking to make up another spot here and get into 9th place. Felipe in the 201 Aston directly in front of them fights back on.
Yeah, and he is going to be trying to make it here a little bit deep there through the second Lesmo. Through the first, got to be very careful, and even pushing the envelope even further. You can tell a little bit eager. Maybe down towards as we pull up a replay here and go on board with Jonathan Riley. It's not a replay. We're just going on board now down towards Ascari. Looking for the move, but you can see we're a bit further back there on board than we were on the outside camera shot. It's about set up now towards the Parabolica. You might be able to make a move if you're lucky. However, I think for the most part, you're just going to be trying to launch yourself down the 0.7 mile straight and getting the move down into the first chicane. Thinking about it, though, as we go into Parabolica, again, a little bit of a bridge too far. Now, great line here from Riley as we see the Aston Martin wash wide. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a pretty hard-pressed battle if Felipe can hold on.
Cue the non-copyright infringing shark music, because Jonathan Riley is coming in the Scuderia Ferrari, and I think he may just be let go. The 201 from Gladys Competitions doesn't want anything to do with the pro car, considering they're in a podium spot. They're fighting for a championship, is Felipe and the 201 Gladys team. They have let the 51 go, and I think that was an incredibly mature and wise decision that sort of helps both cars indeed. Jonathan Riley back to P9 after being sent to the mid-pack after a lap 1, turn 1 incident, and you just wonder what could have been otherwise, but still a long way to go here. An hour 44 left in this race. 9th place now, and all the positions are close. I mean, there's a little bit of a gap between Mattea and Klinkmuller for 7th and 8th, but still it's less than 2 seconds, Riley, to Klinkmuller now. You can in fact see that number 4 Mercedes right there. Well, we told you a minute ago, Mike, that there was a penalty for the 45, and it was exasperation of all the warnings that they've had thus far. Walk us through what happened here.
Yeah, as we're heading down to the first chicane here, trying to make a move on to the Audi, check out of the slipstream down to the inside, and we just miscalculate there, unfortunately. Maybe a couple millimeters too late on the brakes, and not to mention the fact that a McLaren decided to take the slip road and also make a position up on us as well there. But it wasn't the worst incident. Definitely have seen some bigger contacts. Both cars getting away without too much of an issue. Just more or less a little bit of a, well, 5-second penalty to be had for now Tinko Vandervelde behind the wheel. And, you know, you'd mentioned that as well, where it comes to, yeah, your teammate gets the penalty and now you have to serve it, but that's team racing, right? That's what it is. Everybody here is under the same banner for each car, and you take penalties as a team and you serve penalties as a team. It's not about one driver making a mistake. It's about the team as a whole at the end of the day, and I think that's what these drivers' mentalities are going to be focused more towards, versus say, oh, well, I messed up, I did this, because you can't get like that. Once you start having that negative mindset, it's sort of a contagious mindset that can spread to the other drivers, and you really just want to keep nothing but positive vibes when you're behind the wheel. Easier said than done.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's all very nice. That's a lot of team spirit, and I love that attitude, except when it happens to me, and that goes out the window. Sasha Wassner here attempting to get by Gamble. This fight has reignited again between these two, and looks like Wassner's not going to be able to pull a move there as they continue around without any further incident between them. Looks like that BMW just has a little bit something extra leaving the corner, and on the straight, it's the Mercedes wheelhouse, and it just sort of cancels each other out down every straight and off of every corner, and that's why they're locked into this battle. Lee has fallen off the back of this fight. You remember, they were in front of this group a few laps ago, but they've fallen off to 2.5 seconds, back into the clutches of Razier, the 223 almost, as Lizzie in the 104 Mustang is catching up with the 96 BMW in tow as well.
Yeah, and up ahead, I can't quite tell, but behind him, that is very interesting. I was just taking a look at the lap time. So Wassner, 147.0 compared to Cheng Li, who has a 147.5. So about half a second from Li to Wassner in terms of pace alone. And you can already see that is allowing Wassner to pretty much drop Li like a hot potato, and has found the back now of Gamble, as well as Gamble ahead now with Zerban. It's got a mid-pack fight, or rather soon enough, 3.5 seconds separating those two. But of course, Zerban with a 5-second penalty. This mid-pack, I think, is going to collapse and start to heat up once again, probably within the next 30 minutes, I would say.
Yeah, the problem with racing is you tune in at the midway point and you go, oh, well, there's like a couple of battles going on, but we know better up here in the booth. Races always seem to come back together. There's so many varying strategies. We highlighted that prior to the first stops of the day, where cars pitted extremely early, moderately early, and last minute. What that actually does in terms of race strategy is that breaks up the pack, but what that actually does is cause the entire pack to spread out but come back together almost like an accordion right at the end. Every single one of these races at the end, including the 24-hour Spa, was very exciting right at the end, because all of these converging strategies came back together, and what was old became new again. Rivals that you hadn't seen for hours suddenly were right back in your lap, and you were fighting them all over again. Groundhog Day, and you know, you do your best with strategy, don't you, Mike, to get away from everybody else, to run your own race, but you always seem to get back together in the end. It's like a soap opera, really.
It is, and you know, I think the best way of looking at strategies and stuff is saying, rather than I'm going to go and run away from the race, I'm just going to try and run my own race. I think is always how at least I try to process it. Maybe that's why I'm not the best driver in the world. But, you know, as I want to run my own race, I want to be on my own, not my own strategy, but I want to be, in my opinion, the best strategy possible. And, you know, I'll probably pick it before the race, and I'm going to stick to it regardless. Obviously, you are going to be able to change it, especially these guys out there. Pretty much all of these drivers have a team principal, a actual professional race engineer, giving them their data, giving them all of the information. So if they do have changing conditions, they're not just one driver making the decision for the rest of the team. There is a team decision, as well as, again, a professional coach that is making these decisions for them as well.
It has been a remarkable run for Automobili Lamborghini thus far in today's race. Started 19th or 20th right there on the 10th row of the grid. They gained 10 spots in just about 2 laps. They find themselves one step off of the podium in 4th place. David Tanitsa behind the wheel of the 63 Lamborghini right now, 5.5 seconds behind the Veloce McLaren in 3rd place. And just a brilliant run by them, a brilliant run, a quiet day by the 711 running for a championship. Talking about another Veloce car, the Veloce Academy 711 McLaren. Junavicius behind the wheel now. They took the lead in the first stint from the number 28 Ford Mustang. And ever since then, it's been smooth sailing and quiet sailing. And a lot of days as a race car driver, as much as you want action, you want to race somebody, and you want to be in the heat of the battle, some days, especially at a racetrack like this, the best thing you can do is find yourself a little bit of peace and quiet and hide away from the entire field. Kind of the opposite of what Szymanski is doing right here.
No, making the run to the inside here, the 38 is going to presumably get by. If I am Novikov, I'm not going to fight this too hard. This is a silver plate versus a white plate. But the thing that this does allow is now Teddy is in a fight with Novikov. And Novikov, he knew that coming into this, so he wanted to try to stay ahead of Hubert, but it doesn't seem to matter. Kevin Teddy to the outside here on home soil. It's going to turn to the inside if he can wait long enough, but it'll turn back to the out for the chicane. This, though, fully alongside on corner entrance, lick the stamp and send it. And Kevin Teddy in the Visceral Esports car has gained the position over Novikov.
That he absolutely got it done for Visceral Esports. You love to see that ultimate opportunistic move. Novikov put up a little bit of a fight, but didn't really have a whole lot for them. And in fact, already the 44 Visceral Esports Lamborghini slightly pulling away. 255 competition, your pole sitter and leader for the opening stanza of the race up until the pit stop. Had that 30-second penalty assigned to them, and they fell to 13th place. They've gained up to 11th. That 2.5 second gap has been erased to Felipe in the 201. And now this is the fight for them. Will Felipe in the 201 fight as hard? I don't think they will. You'll recall that when Scuderia Ferrari got there, Felipe just sort of let them go, for lack of a better term, didn't fight them. And that's exactly what you would expect with a car fighting for championship points, fighting, of course, for a championship. Jonathan Riley doing the same thing, going down the inside. I expect this is going to be a replay of what we saw earlier on. Oh, fighting really hard here. Klinkmuller not pulling over as they end up side by side. Klinkmuller going to prevail there. No move in the background for Abeladze, unable to pull out and make that move happen as Felipe stays in front of Abeladze. 2 moves, or 1 move rather, between the 4 cars, and didn't really come off there between the 2 of them, but there it is. Just let them go as Felipe does find an opportunistic time to allow the pro car through. 255 competition back inside the top 10.
Yeah, Felipe, they're very smart driving. He knows his place in this battle right now, and he knows that this is not his fight, and I would imagine the same exact thing is going to be done with the number 5 of Tinko Vandervelde behind. A little bit deep there from the Aster, from the AMG of Klinkmuller. He is going to be under threat now, down to Ascari. Jonathan Riley in the Ferrari 296. That turbocharger at full chap has gotten by before they even reach the brakes. Needs to keep it in check for Ascari, and he does so wonderfully. Jonathan Riley up into P8.
Well, if you check your notes, and if you were listening to Mr. Naus during his lecture earlier, he told you the Ferrari was very quick in a straight line. And you saw a little bit of that right there. Got by him before they even got to Ascari.
Yeah, the Ferrari is known for that in particular here, where once its turbocharge gets up to full chap, and the same can be said for the McLaren, these cars are pretty hard to stop. And Jonathan Riley in the Scuderia Ferrari Esports, he is going to take that one with both hands and run away with it now. Klinkmuller trying to hold on. Behind that is Tinko van der Velde. We'll see if Felipe does the same thing on the previous lap. So he's not going to allow him by in the first chicane. This is pretty much exactly what we saw last time. Now as we go through Curva Grande down towards the second chicane, I would imagine we're going to see Felipe let this one go, especially, although we'll see though. Tinko van der Velde with a 5-second penalty. Felipe is going to know that. Now, is that going to play any role in his mind?
I don't think Felipe cares about that. I do think that Felipe cares about losing time, and I don't think Tinko for Williams was quite close enough to make that move make sense as far as time lost, time gained. And he's just sort of hoping. Felipe's done such a good job thus far with these pro cars. I think he's waiting for him to be right there on his bumper, Tinko that is, and he'll just let him go then. And that's sort of what happened with Abeladze. They didn't let him go in the first chicane because he wasn't quite close enough, but he did close up on the exit. Just let him go in the Curva Grande. So just waiting for Tinko to get that little bit closer, and he'll just likely move out of the way. That's what we've seen thus far, protecting that third place. Sometimes racing smart is, well, oftentimes racing smart is way better than actually racing hard. Now, will we see it here? Is he close enough? He's certainly a little bit closer. Will we see no turn in to the Parabolica here? Now, still a little bit of a gap there, as we'll see the cars take the corner normally. And hopefully, Felipe, by the way, is looking in the mirror, cheering van der Velde on, saying, come on, get a little closer. Van der Velde's flashing him, saying, I'm intending to make a pass here. But even so, Felipe goes down to the inside of the racetrack just briefly. Still a little bit of a gap, but will that disappear as they slipstream down the pit straight? It will. And a no move made there. Didn't feel safe enough to do it for van der Velde. Falls back in line. You can tell Tinko's taking this very cautiously as well. Felipe's not meaning to hold the 5 Williams car up. It's just unfortunate that it is happening though.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at lap times, we're seeing about a 0.2 difference from Felipe down to van der Velde, 147.4 from the Aston and a 147.2 from Tinko on the previous lap. So even though the Tinko was behind, he was still quicker. Now, one of the drivers, we talk about racing hard and racing smart. One of the drivers that has done both of those, in my opinion, Dario Mullo and the number 44 Lamborghini. Now, currently, David Tanitsa is behind the wheel of that one, but they started in P19 and have managed to make their way up to 4th, 5.5 seconds off of P3. And looking at their lap times, they're averaging about 0.2 slower per lap than the leader.
Yeah, so we've seen this with Team MSI a bunch, where they don't qualify very well, and they had to do these recovery drives. Today, they didn't really have to do that. They had second, they started third, but had second almost immediately with the lap 1, turn 1 incident. But with the penalty, they knew they were going to be the leader if they just followed suit and stayed on strategy. And they haven't really been tested today, and that's uncharacteristic. We haven't really, with the exception, I think, of maybe Indianapolis, we haven't really seen Automobili be tested too much. They had to come through the field a bit in that race, but today was their day to shine. They needed to make up a lot of places. They did it in relative ease. They've got almost exactly half the race to continue to try and make up some of this time. Slightly concerning, though, they lost a couple of tenths to Walshingham in the number 40 Veloce McLaren on that sector alone. Otherwise, it's been pretty steady at 5.5, not gaining, not necessarily losing over the course of a lap. Walshingham, by the way, what took the fight to Richter in the Renwelton 72, but has fallen off a little bit. 1.2 seconds the gap now for two cars that were nose to tail a few laps ago. Is the Ferrari a little bit better on its tires, or has Walshingham used up a little bit of his stuff halfway through this stint?
Yeah, we'll certainly find that out soon as we approach here the halfway point of the 3 hours here at Monza. 1.5 hours remaining as Hubert is going to go side by side into the Parabolica there. Just wanted to take a moment and say big thank you. That's the Lesmo, my apologies. They look the same. Just wanted to take a moment and thank absolutely everybody that is over on the YouTube side of things, everyone joining us here, watching us, wherever you are in this fine world. Thank you. Hope you're all having a lovely evening, afternoon, or morning. We have not only some very talented drivers in the game, we have some very talented drivers in chat. UNG Lin over there as well. Welcome to you. And just big shout out to everybody. So thank you guys for being here on this lovely Saturday.
Yeah, indeed. It is awesome to have all of you with us. We enjoy doing these broadcasts. It's always more fun with people. And of course, we read the chat periodically. If you want to give a fun fact to Mike Nouse, who has gifted us with so many nuggets of information, drop them in the chat. Go ahead. And while we're at it, at the halfway point, just want to thank our fantastic partners that make this race and every race possible here at SRO Esports and the Intercontinental GT Challenge Esports Series for 2024. A big thank you to Fanatec, AWS, Pirelli, Kunos, AK Esports, SimGrid, SRO, and Dynamic, and of course our manufacturer partners as well, AMG, BMW, Ferrari, and Lamborghini. Thank you to all of those folks, and you can find more information about them in the description and of course at sroesports.com. Check them out.
Absolutely, and I would highly recommend that. And of course, big thank you again to the production behind the scenes, Ryan Gill, Tom Bryant, and all of the others that make it possible for what we do here. There is our dynamic photo as well of the day. Brilliant Coach Dave Academy livery, and that is just a little snippet of the action that we've had here tonight. And of course, this is not going to be close to the full story by the end of the race, but don't worry, there will be more photos by Dynamic to come.
That photo perfectly encapsulates this race, the speed, the ferocity, and a little bit of damage on the front of that Ferrari. Battle-worn cars in an hour and a half, and we're only halfway home here today, folks. That is an excellent shot with the bridge where the oval part connects over as well. Just some brilliant shots always by Dynamic Photography. Thank you for partnering with us. Well, we've got half a race to go, partner, and one more pit stop left to go. Some of the teams, though, Mike, have already made their bed. They came in 15 minutes early on the stop. We reckon the cars that are doing that they're running the race backwards. They're going to take a full 65-minute stint at the end. You questioned if that's wise because of tire degradation. I agree with you 100%, partner, on that. I think that definitely gives a short-term advantage, but a long-term detriment. It puts the ball in the court of those that maximize early because they have the flexibility to change up if they're in a battle and they want a quicker stop or they want better tires. The ball's in their court, and I think ultimately pitting later wins. But my question is for the second stop, if you maximized on the first one, like half the field did, as we see some argy-bargy here, Jack Olivier in the 276 for ERE is able to get by with a little bit of elbows out racing there. My question, though, is if you maximized, do you do it again here, or do you hedge your bets on what you think is going to happen if you're one of the top running cars?
You know, one of the things that I always like to look at is the temperature that has played a role here tonight. And the temperature has been very, very consistent. We're at 22 degrees track and 22 degrees ambient, and that really hasn't changed. And if you go early, the temperatures change. That can really mess your strategies up. But all in all, I feel like the drivers that maybe went early, I'm starting to like their strategy a bit more as this race has gone on. I am, honestly. I think that if you come in around that 65-minute mark, by the end here, yes, Monza is a really easy track relatively to some of the other tracks out there. It's an easy track to overtake on, but I'm not sure the tire wear is going to make a difference. 65 minutes in tire wear for a GT car is really not that much. I would say once you start getting around that 75-minute to 80-minute mark, that's when the tires really start to fall off their cliff. But 65 is kind of that sweet spot in my mind that maybe you can get away with going for that undercut and having a benefit because it allows for moves like this. You have more grip to the outside. You're allowed to go later onto the brakes as Abuladze is going to try to do. Down to the inside there, no contact needed, makes the position stick.
Excellent job there by the 255. Your pole sitting car up to 8. That will frustrate Riley just a little bit in the 51 Scuderia Ferrari, but it was almost to be expected, you'd have to say. Not much in it between them in qualifying, 75 100ths of a second, but on the race track, in the race, it's a little bit more different than that. Of course, the team's not actually having the qualifying drivers in the car also plays into that a little bit as well. We didn't really document really well at the front of the field post pit stop of everything that went down, but the Mercedes-AMG Esports Team MSI car, currently piloted by Tobias Pfeffer, the 72 Rinwelton Ferrari piloted by Bastian Richter, and the number 40 McLaren for Veloce has Aiden Walshingham behind the wheel. David Tanitza in the 63 Automobili Lamborghini is your top four. Juke Novicius, we have documented in the 711, the leading car in silver over Matea in the 28 Mustang. But unless my eyes are failing me, Matea has closed that gap considerably.
Yeah, about down to 2 seconds at this point. Now, of course, that car was leading the race at one point, but since then the McLaren has taken over. But I will say, I think we are going to have a fight on our hands. Lap times are not quite yet in favor of Lucas Matea, about 3/10 off the mark on the previous lap. But looking at the average laps, let's see here. Luke's Fleischer, excuse me, running, or rather, I think behind the wheel now is going to be Jukinovich. Apologies on the mispronunciation on that. They're averaging about 147.3, and we look at Matea, they're averaging about 147.2. So on average, quicker every single lap, but on the previous laps, it is looking like it's favoring Tadas.
Yeah, I was going to say, is like either something happened to Jukinovicius on a lap, maybe they were getting out of the way of a car, or maybe they were lapping a car, rather, considering what end of the field they're in, or they just had a bad lap. It's very possible you hit one of these giant red curbs, as you see scattered throughout the racetrack. It completely ruins your lap. I can guarantee you that. We've all been there. We've all done that, rather unfortunately. But maybe over the course of the run, Matea a little bit quicker than Jukinovicius. So we'll see if that battle does sort of continue to appreciate in value as we continue to go on. Well, an hour 22 minutes left to go in the race. We expect pit stop sometime in the next 30 or so minutes, the final stop of the race. What will the strategies be? They'll be all over the place. But in the meantime, let's flash you back with some highlights starting from the very beginning, the race start, and watch the Rinwelton 72 get pushed into the 51 Scuderia Ferrari car. Scuderia Ferrari gets sent around all the way back in the field. A little bit later on, this battle happens, the 89 of BS Competition and the 45 in Ascari. A little bit of a mix-up there as just about everybody survives somehow. The number 4 and the number 5 getting into each other. Mercedes on Mercedes violence puts the Williams car off of the racetrack momentarily in the second chicane. A little bit after that, the 256 and the 996 in the first Lesmo. It's a huge spin. Wouldn't be the first, wouldn't be the last time we saw a car be spun around in that corner. The 45 versus the 20, a nice move here that almost goes awry, and overtake made here by that BMW. Brilliant stuff indeed. And here, the tail of the day, getting a little too deep in the first chicane, and it all going wrong. That was the 777 and the 20 there. And here is another look of that incident between the 777 and the 20. Everybody scattering out. A bit later on is the 711, the silver lead change. This was the fight. The 28 got pole and led up until this point, where the 711 for Veloce Academy took the lead in silver, made that move decidedly, and has led ever since. Williams has had a rough day here following Automobili Lamborghini spinning on the exit of Ascari, bucking Bronco, bouncing themselves around. They lost a ton of time. The 258 and the 62 having an excellent overtake. We talked at length about the power of the Porsche showing up here at Monza. That's just one example. 45 and the 789 and the 52. It's an accordion effect, folks, and everybody scatters. The 789 paying the ultimate price. 164 and the 89, talking about a rough day of it. BS Competition half spinning the 164. Cars cycling through as the 89 weights. 4 in the 51 going at it for 8th place, fighting for a spot inside the top 10, both on something of a little bit of a recovery drive here. And ultimately, the 51 would win that fight. The 255 right after that would catch up and overtake the 51 for that spot as well for 8th place Abeladze. And that is how we've gotten here. And the tail of the tape is a common one here at Monza, Mike. Braking zone incidents.
Yeah, and most of them being in the rettifilo is what I kind of noticed when all was said and done. Pretty much most of those contacts happening in the first chicane after the long start-finish straight. Again, about 0.7 of a mile long, 1.1 kilometers. And yeah, your full throttle, 85% of this lap, that is where the biggest collisions are going to happen. Thankfully, they haven't been the biggest. Now, one thing that has been getting a little bit bigger that I've noticed, and also we mentioned the power of the Porsche. Still, by the way, that lap that they made that overtake was the fastest lap of the server, or not fastest lap, excuse me, the fastest straight line speed of the server. That still is the case at 288 kph for the Porsche. Fastest in the straight line, the Porsche 992. Anyways, moving on swiftly from that, because that is hard to digest, we have Tobias Pfeffer, who is leading this race currently, and I'm looking at, again, average lap times for these drivers. Tobias is the only driver that is averaging lap times in the 146s. 146.8 is the average there. The only driver that's really even close to that is Aiden Walshing at a 147.0.
Yeah, what can you say about Team MSI? They're absolutely beast, and they've done that all season long. It doesn't matter where they've started. It's been the story of where they've finished is the important thing, and this is a very common performance from them, but that doesn't mean that it's any less spectacular. Just the pace, the overall pace, and the fact that they don't make a lot of mistakes, if any mistakes. They don't shoot themselves in the foot, and when you don't make silly mistakes and you're one of the quickest, if not the quickest teams in the field, obviously don't need a crystal ball to tell you all this. Good things happen to you, and it has happened again to them today. It was an easier road than they're used to having, usually starting outside the top few positions. Today that wasn't the case, and the seas literally and figuratively parted for them. Speaking of which, Bastian Richter must have heard me and took offense to what I said, that they were falling off the back of Walshingham because they have erased a nearly 1.5 second gap and have caught all the way back up to the number 40 McLaren. This fight for P2 is back on. It's Veloce, of course, against Rinwelton.
Yeah, these two haven't started fighting yet, but if they do start fighting, that pretty much guarantees that Tobias Pfeffer and the number 86 team are going to be taking the win, barring a mistake up at the front, because what that will have told us as this is absolutely amazing down here for P9, but what that tells you is that Aiden Walshingham and Richards, they have just accepted the fact that they aren't going to be. They're battling for P2. If they start fighting, that means that they have the writings on the wall at this point. But here, though, Jonathan Riley slipstream and a pretty decent-sized gap to the Aston Martin. That 296 is going to need to get the legs rolling, and the Cavallina Rampanti is not going to be close enough to make a lunge into the Rettifilo. It will have to be down towards the next chicane.
Abeladze passed Riley with such conviction. I expected the 255 competition Aston to just drive away from the Scuderia Ferrari, but that has not happened. Quite the opposite, in fact. Jonathan Riley has attached themselves to the back of that Aston, and they are inseparable, at least at this stage. Now, whether Riley found something following that Aston Martin, or they're just using the tow to make up for any sort of deficiency they may have, that's rather besides and unseen. But what is true is the 255 made the pass decidedly, but there is no gap between these two still. In fact, I thought a lap ago Riley may have had a look on Abeladze, but wasn't quite close enough. So that's interesting. Didn't expect this to keep going on 2 or 3 laps after the pass, but here we are, 8th place, still in doubt.
Yeah, Riley is close to Abeladze as Abeladze is to Riley, and they're looking to keep that consistent for a while now. But
haikus.
Thank you. I think I stole that one from Murray, though. I will just be honest. Either way, down to the braking zone. Not going to be close enough yet, but this is where the real meat and potatoes comes in. The Ferrari takes a wide line. So does the Aston Martin. Both of them going to slingshot themselves onto the straight. And again, about a car and a half lengths gap between them. It's going to be a bit of wishful thinking if Riley wants to get the overtake done, but he can at least use this time in the slipstream to close up to the back bumper once again.
Gets down there and gets really close, but nothing doing there. We flash you back up to the battle for P2. That's Aiden Walshingham in the Veloce McLaren in front. That we're riding on board Bastian Richter's Rinwelton Ferrari. It's McLaren versus Ferrari here, and they're just sort of feeling each other out. You were right on when you said a minute ago that these two aren't really fighting each other yet. I mean, they are, but they're not directly fighting. They're playing mind games. If anything, Richter's trying to probe for weakness, try to figure out what Aiden is worse at than they are, and attempt to exploit that. Now, that may just be one corner on this 11-turn racetrack, but you have to know where you're better, and you have to know how to exploit that better than anybody else. More than anything, in a situation like this, two fast race car drivers, what you're hoping for is the Veloce McLaren to fall off enough that you can just get by them because they don't have grip, or that Walshingham makes a mistake, which would be the first of the day for any driver in the Veloce number 40. But Rinwelton also hoping that they're not the ones that make the mistake, hyper-focusing on following a car this close, because following a car this close and being this high up, this can be a detriment. We saw it earlier with the Williams number 5 spinning, following the Automobile Lamborghini, which is 7 seconds in the rears and falling off of this group a little bit. But nevertheless, following too closely can give you tunnel vision, and it can cause problems.
It certainly can, but one thing I noticed there into the braking zone that we saw is a big lift off the throttle before we actually got onto the brakes. So I still think Richter has the thought in his mind, and I would imagine Walshingham, he knows this too. These two have raced each other. They can communicate without talking to each other. They want to still have a chance to fight for the win. Both of those drivers do. So they're just going to work together for the time being. There's still an hour and 12 minutes left. If you are Richter and you start to make moves onto Walshingham, you're only going to lose time and come into the grips potentially of David Tanitsa. And then heck, both of you might not even be on the, or one of you may not be on the podium when that conversation is said and done. So these two need to work together to the best of their abilities for the next, presumably, probably till the next pit stop. Once the next pit stop goes by, that's when, in my opinion, these drivers can kind of start to take the gloves off a little bit and get a bit more argy-bargy once they realize that Tobias Pfeiffer is kind of gone. Because that's the thing, is Tobias can still get a penalty come pit phase, and that will put them right back in it. But once we get to that point, the penalty window is, or it's going to be tough after the next pit stop to catch Tobias, is I guess what I'm getting at.
I did not know that you could use the words race car driver and work together in the same sentence, because I've never heard it once before. But yeah, I mean, it goes back to co-opetition. You've got to cooperate and compete at the same time with everybody out there on the racetrack. And Richter's in a great spot. If that car, if Bastian feels like that car is capable of taking P2, and I would reckon that both, as you say, Walshingham and Richter know that P1 probably not on the cards here today. But besides, Matea has got around Juknavicius here. Matea has retaken the lead for ST Racing Esports. We missed that live. We're going to show you the replay here in a few moments, but that is a second lead change in the silver class. The 711, who we documented earlier, that was losing time to Matea. He's not only lost the time, he's lost the lead. Luke Matea, ST Racing, in that Mustang, back to the point.
Yeah, talking about the leaders of the white plates, they're saying the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Well, in this case, the enemy of my enemy they're just my enemy at this point. And Matea and Juknavicius, they are at war, it seems. This is absolutely electric, and this is going to continue all the way down to the line, I have no doubt.
I am going to hazard the guess that it was a very respectful fight between the two of them, and the fact that we didn't catch it means that it was incredibly brief as well. They've been nothing but respectful to each other, but let's take a look and see how the lead in the silver class changed hands. Here we are riding on board. This is, I believe, with the 7-Eleven, and they're just going to get off into the dirt and a little bit off the racetrack, and that's going to allow the ST Racing Mustang to go down the inside of Parabolica, and that's going to be all she wrote. That Mustang on the inside, and with that horsepower, is going to take the lead off of the final corner and out-drag the McLaren down the straight. That's how Juke Vicious lost the lead. They hit the curb in Ascari.
That was a high commitment, high speed overtake. Absolutely incredible.
Sure
into
was.
the final corner and launching them. Typically, you'd see a little bit of patience, as we've said before. Patience is sometimes the better part of valor. Is the patience is a virtue, but in this case, no. It's just about getting your nose to the grindstone and getting the job done.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take your opportunities because we're getting to that part of the race. We talked earlier about seeing a lot of give. We talked about Felipe being very accommodating to the pro cars around them. There's a point in all these races where that just sort of stops. It doesn't matter what position you're in. It becomes about what have you done for me lately, and less about what I can do for you. So that's coming up, if not already occurring. And Mateus saw that for ST Racing, said, oh, Junavicius made a mistake. I might not get another opportunity at this. Caught them at a slower part of the racetrack and was able to sneak down their inside, put their car in the right place, and get the job done. I think the exact opposite is happening here with Bastian Richter. I think you're right. And oh my goodness, I think that's the Williams Academy car. Completely off of the racetrack. They will rejoin and not be any drama there between those two. But I think Bastian Richter's just pacing right now. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think there's any urgency for Ren Welton to go up there and pass the Veloce McLaren at all here.
No need as of yet. Still an hour and 8 minutes left to go. And when you're that close, when you know these drivers, like I said, Bastian and Aiden, I know for a fact they have raced each other before. They know each other's driving styles and they know each other's weaknesses. So it's just about, again, the enemy of my enemy is my friend right now, and I have to work with Aiden, despite the fact that I don't want to if I'm Bastian, and try your hardest to catch the back of Pfeffer, and even that might not be enough.
Don't get them wrong here. What the thing is Richter realizes that if Walshingham makes a mistake, like what we saw earlier with Juke Vicious, Richter's going to take that opportunity. He's going to overtake Walshingham. But he doesn't actually gain anything by forcing a move, losing more time, maybe helping Tanitza and Automobili Lamborghini catch up a little bit, putting his own self at risk, putting his own team at risk. They realize they have the pace in the Ferrari. Walshingham's not going anywhere. Realistically, unless there's a mistake, there's no real reason to do it. There's an hour and 7 minutes left. It's all to play for.
No, and it's unnecessary tire wear at the end of the day. And of course, these guys are at the end of their stint. Their rubber is down to the absolute minimum, but you're going to be using a little bit more rubber to make that overtake happen. And if you don't fight it, then you're going to be able to save it. So this is just a game. This is a long-term battle, is what both of these guys, they know it at this stage, and they know they're going to be fighting each other later, but for the time being, try your absolute heart out to maybe catch Pfeffer if he makes a mistake, because that's all you can do right now. If you start battling, you come into the grips with Tanitza, then you're into the grips with the likes of the silver drivers, and who knows what can unfold from there. Tobias Pfeffer, at that point, he's a minute up the road, and any chance of a victory is gone. So they want to just keep it as honest as possible at this point, and I'm curious who pulls the trigger first in the pit phase. Are we going to see a 65-minute stop from one of those drivers? Are we going to see the same strategy, or are we going to see alternate? I predict alternate.
I think we'll see both, and by the way, folks at home, we are 1 minute 10 seconds away from that decision potentially being had. Remember, you got a 65-minute stint. There's only an hour and 6 minutes left in the race, and 1 minute from now, you can come down pit lane. Matter of fact, if you're taking tires, these cars here might be able to come in right now because your driver's stint timer doesn't start until you exit pit lane. So you can actually come in now before, and because you would leave with a minute 4, minute 3 left, exiting the pit lane, you would be very close. You'd have to worry about there being an extra lap in the race, of course, which is why I don't think a lot of drivers would elect to do that. I'm just saying, devil's advocate, you could do that if you were especially trying to get some sort of advantage. What does all this strategy talk mean? I'll put this in the simplest terms I possibly can for everybody watching at home. They're playing chess at 250 kph.
Yep. Could not have said that better myself. And it's a game of who gives first, to be completely honest, and who moves their pawn into the wrong spot, and then the pieces will start to crumble. And that might be the case for Walshingham. It might be the case for Richter. We're going to find out. But those two are really the determining factors up in the white plates for now. And of course, we still have that silver plate battle, which is ever so exciting. But one thing I'm looking at is, as we mentioned before, the stops. When did these drivers elect to come in on the previous laps? And pretty much everybody was consistent on lap 35. Every single one of the drivers, we watched it. They all played to the end of the stint as long as they possibly could. I want to see a bit of an alternate strategy from Richter. I want to see him come in on this next lap. I think that would add a little bit of a little flair into this, and a couple more talking points as we see some cars go very deep there through the Lesmos, and that is particularly dangerous.
I tell you something we haven't seen a lot of today that I'm sort of concerned about, and I want everybody at home to pay attention to in this final hour of this race. We've really, as far as my notepad is concerned, we've seen one drive-through for track limits, and this is a track that's known to chew cars up and spit them out as far as track limits are concerned, really only on a handful of corners, but that's all it really takes if you're abusing that same limit lap after lap. Some of the cars, by my estimate, have been, and it's something to worry about. We've only really seen the one drive-through for that we're aware of, but when the final hour, when everything matters more and you're taking more than you're giving, be very aware that we could see a rash of drive-through penalties for track limits. Certainly could. And you know, one thing, I'm looking over at the standings currently for the silver category because I'm just trying to do some quick maths. Can you make sense of it? No, not really. But I can make some sense that if the flag was to fall on this current lap, I think the Veloce Academy team might be winning this championship. It's very hard to tell. The BF Racing car, I'm not sure where have the BF Racing car, where they ended up, the number 17 currently, so they're like 10th.
Yeah, okay, so they're going to be getting a definite hit on their points. So Veloce is going to be presumably in the lead of this as we see some side-by-side action ahead of this pack. It looked like the RNL Roar car getting overtaken, or if that was a back marker, I'm not sure. But either way, it's going to be tight. And then we also, of course, have the Samantha Tan Racing. They're off the back of a win. Now, keep in mind, they had a P21 finish at Indy. That is their worst result, and the one that they are dreading. And, of course, they have had a P3, a P11, and a P1. They're coming off the back of a victory and looking to make it 2 in a row.
Well, here we go. Here is the Myrtle Motorsport car trying to make a position up. There's fighting all over the track, including for P37, and Leon Hopp has done it for Myrtle Motorsports, and that Honda NSX able to get around Lucasen in the number 20 Mercedes AMG. Folks, I'm going to make this as plain English and as simple as I possibly can for the championship in the silver category. If it were to finish like this right now, ahead of the 24-hour Nürburgring finale, I thought for a second Lucasen was going to spear off into the distance. They did not. I'm going to make this as simple as possible. We are going to effectively have a deadlock between the 711, the 44, the 17, the 28, and the 223, and the 201 for championship honors. It may not be a winner-take-all in the finale, but it is going to be near as makes no difference for that finale if it finishes like this. It has been jumbled up all season. There's never been a clear-cut front runner, and that continues today. And it is so close, it is impossible to tell.
And that really goes to show the skill of the drivers out there. You know, one thing I'm noticing is we have the silver plates are so mixed up in their talent, but you can also see how mixed up they are in the white plates. And of course, this is very reminiscent to real life driving, where they have AM, Pro-Am, and and more categories as well, of course. And the drivers, they just have to contend with it. And we see lots of silver plate drivers potentially going to be joining the ranks of the white plates at some point. At least you can certainly see the potential for some of those cars. The other thing that I see for potential is I think we are finally starting our final pit phase. We see some cars starting to pull on in.
Yep, of course, now we are well within that window, and you've got yourself a lap buffer in case the leader crosses the line with a minute or so left to go. Keep in mind, your stint timer doesn't end just because the clock stops ticking. You've still got to cross the line with that stint timer ticking, so you can have effectively up to a minute 50 or so, depending on how slow the last lap is for you, of additional time past the end of that clock. But we're well within it now with 1 hour left to go, just after 9 a.m. here in northern Italy. And everybody now would be safe to come in. Abeladze's come in. The 204 is also in. Yep, that Porsche is in the pit lane. Those are some of the early takers. I wonder if we're going to see everyone try to maximize this stop or minimize this stop, I should actually say, by coming in as late as possible, as late as their stint limit timer will allow them. That would be about 9.5 minutes from now.
Yeah, I predict that they might as well. At this point, I would still like to see an undercut from... Oh, wait, hold on. Richter has gotten by Walshingham. Wait. Yeah, okay, we're going to have a replay of that very, very soon. That's just happened in front of my face. Just realized these two trading back and forth. I wonder if there was a mistake from Walshingham. That would be my first prediction, considering that he hasn't fallen off the back. Let's see, though, as we head into Ascari. We've seen quite a few people run wide on exit here. Is it going to be the same story? Yes, it is. And an off-the-track pass from Richter. Questionable.
I'd be curious what Race Control thinks about that, because that was absolutely an off-the-track overtake. But you could also argue, and if you're Bastian Richter and Rinwelton, you're going to argue, well, if I would have went left, I might have hit him.
You can't argue that. I agree. I don't know if I agree with it, but you can argue it.
You can tell I'm a team manager, can't you?
Oh, yeah.
Because I would argue that. I would absolutely argue that.
Oh, I would
if
too.
You pull, because you're going right, and if you pull left, and if you're wrong, you're going to run into them, and that's a hairier situation. So just go around the outside is what I would plead to a steward's box.
It's always the question is always, should I lift here? And if you're a racing driver at this level, the answer to that is typically no. You don't. It's when in doubt, flat out is the general rule of thumb at this level. And I think we saw a perfect example of that right there.
Many cars in the pit lane, including the Scuderia Ferrari, Klinkmuller in the 4, and a lot rather besides. Ryan Gill, our producer for the day. Ryan, it's lovely to have you, by the way, has actually just played up in our ears and said that, yes, but if I were the manager of Veloce, I would argue the opposite, and he's absolutely right. I would argue that that was an off-the-track overtake and absolutely dastardly.
Motorsports, everybody.
Isn't that funny how that works?
It really is. It's, like I say, do I agree with both of them? Sure, I'll agree with both of them. But again, that's what the stewards are for. We have live stewards here at the SRO League, and we big thank you to all of them. I know Remco Otten's, I think, doing the lead of that. We also, of course, have Alexa Gates. We also have Stefan down there as well. So big shout out to you guys. And Scotty, of course, down in the production booth.
Thank God they're doing the heavy lifting. They're making the hard decisions. All we got to do is talk. They've got to actually make decisions.
Yep, exactly. And we just have to reflect them to the people and say, wow, what a dumb decision from that driver. And while we sit up in the booth with our in our glass houses while we throw stones, it's very lovely.
I don't think we've ever said that ever, but we've seen some penalties today that I think we certainly look at and go, yep, that makes complete sense. I think, honestly, if I'm being candid, I think the drivers and the teams have made it quite easy on a lot of people here today. I think a lot of the incidents we've seen are quite black and white, and the penalties sort of reflect that as more cars continue to come down pit lane. Razor in the 2-2-3. Some minor penalties this stint, but nothing of the magnitude of the first stint, which you would expect as the race calms down and gets into a groove. We'll see if any of these cars decide to come in. And no, they do not. They are certainly now, in my opinion, going for the maximum. You can expect them in sometime in the next 2 laps or so, just shy of the 50-minute left to go mark. A lot of the cars that have come in now or have already pitted were those cars that came in some 10 plus minutes early in the first stint and had no other choice but to come in by this point. But it looks like everybody who stayed out for the maximum 65 minutes earlier are also hanging on to that strategy. Why do you do that? Technically shorter pit stop, less fuel in the car, etc. and so forth. They still will have to install their third driver in the car.
And you know, a really good question from chat, by the way, real quick, I just wanted to address from Chris Hardeveld. It's not really much of a question. I mean, it's just a basic question, but I want to add on a little bit to it because there's some very exciting stuff that we can dissect from it.
Okay.
And that is the fastest lap from pole time, which was a 1:45.8. That is the fastest lap of
Eight
the
dead. 8 even, in fact, yeah.
8.00, yes, indeed. And the lap times that we're seeing here, 46.6. Now, that is 1.5 seconds, over 1.5 seconds difference from the pole lap compared to the lap that we see today. Now, what could be some factors in that? Potentially temperatures from the ambient, the track conditions could obviously play a role. But one of the biggest things is I was talking with Mikhail Stitchenko from the Ferrari Esports team, and he makes the comment that they have different drivers that do different roles. So they have qualifying drivers, they have drivers that do laps for the actual race. They have different sorts of again, roles that these drivers have to fill. And Mikhail, he is the qualifier for the Scuderia Ferrari Esports team. He ended up 75 thousandths off of pole position. But when it comes down to it, I find it fascinating how different the lap times are from qualifying over into the session, from setup, from track temp, from the driver's focus and the amount that they're willing to put on the line. You would never see a 45 in race conditions.
You certainly wouldn't. Pit stops over for these two cars, the 51 Scuderia Ferrari car and the 255 competition Aston, and it was swapped back and forth. Chris Hardeveld came out in front for Scuderia Ferrari, but Ciata has just now retaken that spot for the 255 competition team, and Conrad Ciata streaking away now a little bit from Chris Hardeveld at this stage. So they have swapped that spot, and that should be for about 7th or 8th place, depending on how it all shakes out. Here's a replay of the 4 exiting pit lane. Might this be unintentional contact here or a squeeze play? Oh man, that's close between the 5 and the 4 as they just about make it through the first chicane.
I would be really curious to see. I wasn't paying attention. They continue side by side here as we go down to the second chicane. We're not done yet. Down through the Curva Grande, it's the inside line for the Williams car on entry, but it's going to turn to the out on exit. Who has the advantage? Looks like advantage to the Williams Esports car, and we cut away at the perfect time. But I'd be very, very curious to see if Kisser came across the white line there. Now, I'm sure he didn't, but that just was something that I forgot to pay attention to on that replay, as we are not allowed to be crossing the pit entry or pit exit lines here in the SRO Championship.
Shout out to Team HRT. They made that incredibly close and made Williams fight for that one. Ultimately, in the second chicane was ultimately won by Williams, but Team HRT did a pretty good job making that really convincing. And those cars, I think, were close earlier in the race. They've come back together. That kind of that accordion effect that I talked about earlier on, and we're going to see a little bit more of that. Aiden Walshingham in the pit lane with Bastian Richter. It would appear as if Tobias Grunwald has been installed in the Team MSI Mercedes Esports car. And everybody in front of that 86, this car here, Tobias Grunwald behind the wheel, they have not pitted or are coming into pit lane now. I think they all have to, except the Automobili Lamborghini car has not come in. They have continued on. Tadas Juknavicius, the leading car currently in silver because the 28 has pitted. They're in. Tanitsa has gone by the pit lane, and unless I'm missing something, they are going to violate the stint timer.
I'm checking right now. Yeah. I think you are correct. They're currently at a 1 hour and 4 minutes and 26 seconds. No. They do apparently have a 5 to 10 second margin to make it, which means that they need to not lose the back end at all.
All right.
It is going to be tight. We'll stick with them here, our current race leader, and we'll see as they are counting down to the wire here. I'm watching it over on the pit wall to see if they are actually going to make it.
Folks at home, whenever the commentators get nervous, you should be nervous. Everyone should be nervous. This is close. We're talking a window of no more than 10 seconds to get this car into the pit lane. A little bit of a bobble, a walk the dog out to the outside of the racetrack, held up by another car, a trip to the dirt. Anything could change this entirely. 9, 8, 7 at the limit. They got in with 7 seconds or less in the pit lane. By my judgment, they're good, but only just.
Yeah, I'm waiting here for an update on the pit wall side. Once they reach the line, we'll get
Mike
that.
Now's
It's going to be
not
close.
Convinced. Mike Now's
I'm
not convinced. He's folding his arms. He's still paying attention to see whenever they exit if they get a pit lane penalty of some variety, but we'll see. And Felipe is in as well, but I think the 201, the same with Szymanski, they might be slightly out of sync, so that might be okay for them, but we will keep an eye on that. Tobias Grunwald will assume the lead of the race for Team MSI. Eamon Murphy installed into the Veloce number 40. Otaki in the Renwelton 72. Angel Enestroza has gotten into the 711, which is out in front of the 28 Ford Mustang, but it's gone wrong for the Veloce Academy car. They have a drive-through penalty, I can only assume, for track limits. That is going to take them out of the lead and contention for the win, and it might take them out of contention for the championship as well.
It very well may, and that is going to be just gutting for the 7-Eleven, and that could also be down to entering the pit lane slightly too quick. Now, you often will get a stop-go 30 penalty from speeding in pit lane, but if you infringe over the pit limiter by just, I think, 1 or 2 miles an hour, you will get a drive-through penalty for it, so it could be a speeding in pit lane as well that cost him that.
Yeah, it very well could. It has to be very minor speeding, but it is certainly possible. But either way, it's a drive-through. That was a DT for track limits, we're being told. And also, if you've noticed, the 39 has disappeared off the board. They've been off the board for quite some time. That's because they've got a second penalty for track limit warnings as well. So they've used 8 track limit warnings in one race today. There's a stop-and-go 30 for the 38. And there's a stop-and-go 30 for the 996 for speeding. I'm assuming both those cars with stop-and-go 30s has sped in the pit lane. I've not seen a stop-and-go of that ferocity in SRO Esports in a very long time, so I think it's a safe bet to assume those are for speeding in the pit lane. And Savini installed into the Automobili Lamborghini car, Mike. No penalties. They got in with 7 seconds left on that stint timer. Incredibly close. I wasn't worried at all.
Yeah, I wasn't doubting it down to the wire either. not at all. Yeah, got away with that one by the skin of their teeth, thankfully. And they will be able to continue on. Another stop-go 30 there. That's going to be for David Piratella down in the 38. And it just has not been the day for the 38 machine. Ooh, as we go down to the outside there, the Veloce gets clattered into the side channel. A hip check at the apex. It's going to be now down towards the Curva Grande on the outside. It's going to be Leon Otaki. He has just about enough space, but he can't close the gap. The McLaren keeping him honest enough for now. The drag there, the McLaren Turbo finally kicking in as they go down to the braking zone. Is it going to be enough? It seems that Otaki has managed to make that one stick. With a little bit of effort, it is to be said.
The Audi in the background, not for position on the racetrack. Leon Otaki for Renwelton strikes when the iron is hot and was taking he wasn't taking no for an answer. A little bit of argy-bargy into one, gave him just enough room in the Curva Grande and had the final blow in the De La Raja chicane, getting it done, and now hopefully driving away from Eamon Murphy. But Eamon Murphy will not be appreciative of how that move came off. It was very, very close indeed.
Indeed it was. And another update here, by the way, on the 7-Eleven car. After that drive-through penalty, they have plummeted down into 16th position. Very unfortunate for the 7-Eleven Silver Plate drivers. On top of that, 5 seconds as well being headed to Scyther. That's been around for a while now. So the race leader for the silver category is pretty firmly the Samantha Tan Racing team, currently piloted by Goplet up in P5, I should say, for the silver plate drivers. Lomi running in second with a pretty decent margin separating them. So right now, the Samantha Tan Racing team looking like it's going to be good on the back-to-back, as we see Philippia Bokita there with enough mid-air time to be served wine and cheese on that flight. Somehow manages to keep the car under control. Absolutely incredible. The drive is still on the Aston Martin onto the outside. That's going to be Leafly onto the outside. Not going to find it. Silver plate driver trying to get a hurry up on, but with the white plate driver of Bokita trying to catch the back of Maito once more here. Has a little bit of a slipstream effect. Is about 6.5 tenths behind. This will help them gain to the back bumper. The Australian is not going to be able to find it as of yet, but still with time in the waitings and in the wings, we will see if the BS Competition 2021 Blue Machine can make anything happen. Looking over at the standings for that team, the number 89 currently is sitting in P8 for the BS Competition. They're about 53.5 points. 2 points behind the Red Welton Esports, with the Coach Dave Academy not too far ahead either. And judging by the results of that Coach Dave Academy team, it's not looking necessarily all sunshine and rainbows for the 38 right now. An incidence between 51 and 255. 5 seconds for the 255. Our previous, well, I guess it's easy to say, pole sitters.
Oh, man, that is frustrating. These two have been locked in a fight for the past 40 minutes or so, and that will all but do it. As long as Hartveld can stay within striking distance of Ciata, this is going to be all she wrote. Hartveld doesn't really have to do a whole lot. Of course, Chris would probably like to get by the 255 competition and maybe have a shake at getting up there with the 7 McLaren, and maybe even more. It's 5-6 seconds the gap. It's still doable with 43 minutes, especially if you have a pace difference. But still, that 5-second penalty to Ciata, that's a dagger. But that doesn't mean Ciata's going to roll over and allow the 51 Ferrari through, nor really should they. They still have a right to defend and fight for their position, to the frustration of Chris Hartveld and Scuderia Ferrari, but that's just the way the racing goes.
Exactly. If you don't want to be behind somebody, then make the overtake, which is, I guess, quote that one, Mike 2024. This is going to be, I think, the overtake. No, it's not, actually. It's just a thought, and that is going to be it. We're not going to find any move just yet. Trying to force Saita into a mistake, but we know the 255's pace is there. We know how quick they are. Obviously, they were the pole sitter at one point in time in this race. But with a stop-go 30, or excuse me, with a 30-second penalty from the previous race that they brought over into this one, it has resulted in, well, as at the time stands, a P8.
Well, you'll remember when Leon Otaki overtook Eamon Murphy, I mentioned that I don't think Veloce was going to really fall off the back of them, or at least Eamon Murphy was hoping to stay right on the back of the Ren Welton Ferrari. That's exactly what's happened. Eamon Murphy has not fallen off the back of Leon Otaki, and these two continue to pace each other around for P2. And you wonder if Eamon is sitting there and not using more of their tires, if they're sort of pacing out a little bit. He has a little look, a little sniff down into the first chicane, nothing doing, falls back in line. And that's kind of my point. How much is Eamon Murphy saving? How much is he playing with Leon Otaki here?
Yeah, at this point, you're pretty much free to pull the trigger. Here's a drive-through penalty for the 818, collecting 3 license plate points within one race, and that has resulted in a drive-through penalty, so unfortunately being a little naughty one too many times in this session. But yeah, at this point, I think it's fair to say, Otaki and Murphy, they're not worried about Grunwald in the 86. The MSI car it will either show up at one point in time with a crash, or it won't. I think they have fully accepted that. The pace is pretty much unmatched at this point for the 86. Otaki is going to be knowing that, and knowing that Murphy is wanting to be on the hurry up and try to make a move. I think it's time now. They can start battling. They're free to roll, but the thing that they need to keep in mind if they do decide to battle, 4 seconds behind them is the number 63, the car that started in P19, and in my opinion, the driver of the day, or the team of the day today, the number 63 Lamborghini, currently piloted by David Savini. 4 seconds behind. Again, started in P19.
I'm going to admit something. I've just realized something. We're in race number 5, and I just realized every single one of these broadcasts, there's been 3 Lees on this broadcast. Lee spelled L-E, Lee spelled L-I, and me with 2 E's. There's 3 Lees here. Isn't that weird?
How many? Just there's only 2 Michaels too. That's such a low number.
I know that we are. There's some weird numbers and weird stuff going on here, but that's very strange. We've got every form of Lee, is what I'm saying. What I'm getting at, folks at home, if you're wondering why that's important, we've got every way you can spell Lee. I think is what's going on here. Oh, Eamon Murphy had a little sniff, had a little look, but again didn't overcommit. Got back in line. And that kind of speaks to what Eamon's attempting to accomplish here. 40 minutes left in this race. You don't have to go for the move right now, especially if you think you have a pace difference. Chris Hartefeld, though, absolutely wants to make this move. Looking down the inside with intention, not quite able to get there. Right on the back of the 255. Was there a touch? Couldn't tell from this angle, but they're as close as you like. Offsetting is Hartefeld. Hartefeld trying to go around the outside of the Curva Grande. He's there to the fender, halfway, even now. Pulling to the inside and back around is Ciata. Ciata's trying to outpace him, and he does as they're single file again. A little bit of draft, and back up the inside is Hartefeld. Hartefeld into the second chicane, has a look, tucks back in for a second time, and that'll just about do it here as they'll follow through the Lesmos or Willie. Offsets about a quarter of his car, takes a look, not on, not close enough, and settles back in. And that was only a couple of corners. You can tell this is the opposite of the Otaki and Murphy argument that we're having. Hartefeld wants by this Aston.
Yeah, these two have nothing to lose and everything to gain at this point, and keep that in mind. Again, the number 255 started in the front, has a 5-second penalty that will be assigned to them at the end of this race, so they're trying to outdrive that penalty. And the 51, they're trying to outdrive the Aston. They're not having much luck of it right now, though, as they go every which way, deep there on the exit of Ascari. But is that going to allow them to carry enough momentum potentially into the Parabolica? The real goal of the Parabolica is to slingshot yourself into this corner that you're about to see, the first one. As we go side by side, the Veloce Vex finds the inside, but no, he doesn't get it alongside enough there. Great job from Otaki to go late enough onto the brakes for the defense.
Yeah, good job for the Brabham car there, realizing that you're going to go 3 wide, backing out, giving Eamon just enough room to get back in line there. Everybody knew the assignment, and everybody aced the test there, including the Brabham Eau Rouge car in the group there, who of course was being blue flagged, but nevertheless, a lot of times if you're a lapped car, you have to be more aware than others in the group, and just excellently done. They were 3 wide, about 200 meters from the braking, or from the corner, and they somehow ended up single file by the time they actually got deep into the zone. No harm, no foul. And it's so easy for that to go wrong, but that was just excellently handled by everybody involved. Everybody knew the assignment. Everybody survives to race out this lap. Eamon Murphy just, I assume, knew that there was going to be space allotted and just slipped back in line, as he's done every other lap, just stalking Leon Otaki at this point.
Yeah, and he's going to be trying once more to try to line it up into the first chicane as we go down towards the Parabolica once more. We have a bit more of a gap than we had on the previous lap. We know how that one worked out. Now, of course, there were back markers involved as we now try to get the run. Launch yourselves. You can see the McLaren takes the wide line to slingshot onto the start-finish straight. Try to get shot out of that corner like a cannon. And it seems that it's worked a bit. Although you run wide, that also costs a couple tenths on the initial part of the corner. So it's just about gaining back up here as we reach the inside of the braking zone. I don't think there will be much of an opportunity. And it's going to have to be looking at the second chicane now. Again, we still have 36 minutes, so Eamon Murphy has the time to process this. Otaki going to be getting a little bit tired of looking in the rearview mirror, maybe getting a bit, I would say sweaty at this point might be a decent word to describe it, as the pressure intensifies, and it is going to get only more challenging from here.
Well, folks, I've been looking at the Silver Championship points with the penalty for the 7-Eleven Veloce Academy car. I've been thinking about what the championship's going to look like. Goblet in the Samantha Tan Mustang right now, they look like your eventual winners of this race, and I want to talk about them a little bit more in a moment. But the 201 Lomi, who has been lost in all this, P2, Tavinza Hacker now in the 44 up in third place. That's the Visceral Esports car. And of course the 201, the Gladys Competitions car, they may get really close to taking the championship lead in silver. And if they don't, they're going to be within a few points. The 28 is going to get incredibly close to the championship lead as well. The 44, actually, the 44 is going to take the championship lead, I've just noticed. Likely, either that or they're going to be in a literal dead tie. It's too close to call. But instead of being versus 5 cars now, it is versus 3 cars that are all going to be clumped together within a few points is what I'm getting at. And those 3 cars are the cars that are on your screen here. They're slightly out of position to where they're currently in the championship, but the 7-Eleven out of that fight complicates that table a little bit less somehow. But still, it's going to be anybody's fight. There's going to be about 5 cars, Mike, that can win that silver championship in 2 weeks' time.
It is, and Murphy is now ahead of Ataki. Seems that we've had a little bit of trading positions as we tune back to this fight. Now Ataki is behind, and the score chart yet to update. Is Ataki going to be trying to take it back? He sells a dummy into the second chicane, but that's all it is not going to be going for the move yet. But you mentioned the points there, and if the 28 Samantha Tan Racing Esports team wins this championship for the silver category, don't call it a comeback. That's all I gotta say. That's what a run if the Samantha Tan Racing team could actually find the win for the number 28 car. Currently sitting in 6th in the championship. That P21 result looming over their head, it's going to be kicking them for a while. Of course, there is one drop round for these drivers, so that round will be left into the dust, but the P11 is also one that they have to contend with. So it might come down to the Nordschleife, and what a track to decide a championship on.
Yeah, it's the ultimate wild card. A lot of racing series, they put their wild card in the middle of the series. We've done it at the very end, where it's a racetrack where these drivers will have had quite a little bit of experience, and they don't have anywhere near the notebook as they did anywhere else really in the series. And it's not as easy to practice for as, let's say, the Red Bull Ring either. So it's a track where a lot of people are going to be going in there with a blank canvas, and they're going to have to try and find themselves, and they may not know where they stack up until the checkered flag falls. So anything can happen. And keep in mind, the Green Hell is a track 100 plus corners. Anything, anytime, anywhere. We're going to race through the night. Obviously, the potential of bad weather can occur there as well, and it's certainly a race that you're never out of, and you're never quite sure where you're going to finish until you've actually crossed the line. The old cliche, but it's true. It's one of those races. It's a total wild card. Anybody inside the top 5, in my opinion, can win this championship in the silver class.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting. Definitely add that one to your calendars, as we have it coming up next week, or it's the 28th. So 2 weeks from now, I think we are going to be back for the 24 hours of the Nordschleife.
Going to be a lot of fun, folks. Mark your calendars. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell here, and follow everywhere else. We'll be back with you in 2 weeks for the finale, round number 6. 24 hours of Nürburgring is going to be brilliant. Yeah, I can't wait to get there. Honestly, we've not seen anything quite like that in ACC racing, and there's so many questions that nobody has the answer to, but I'm happy to find out live with everybody else. Filippo Bokita and this entire BS competition team has continued to fight. You talk about a team that has been involved in some of the battles, has been penalized, has been knocked down the field a little bit. For them to even be in the top 15 is quite brilliant here. Do bear in mind that as far as pro is concerned, they're a little bit further up than 14th place, but all things considered, this could have been a nightmarish day that saw them outside the top 20, but they've somehow managed to put it in a respectable position, and among other cars in their own class whom they're still fighting, such as Miato in the 164 directly in front of them.
Yeah, and man, I gotta say, Bokita has been all over Maito for a while now, and she just has not been able to find the daylight required to make the overtake happen. Has the silver plates ahead as well, about 9 seconds up the road, but that Honda NSX is a back marker that they will be having to contend with soon enough. I also said at the top of the broadcast there were no Hondas out there. I was wrong. There's one Honda. How could I be so daft? That is amazing. I love to see a Honda on the SRO grid, a car that was once the best car in ACC and since it doesn't hold that title anymore. But now, down towards the first chicane, Bokita under threat right now from Leifle to the outside. The number 276 silver plate driver wants a taste of the action themselves.
Yeah, LaValle's not going to hang around here, and you never know what can happen. So they're flashing the lights as LaValle in the 276, flashing Bokita there, saying, hey, go past that person, get a move on. I'm getting held up here. I don't know if Bokita will care or have even noticed that currently with Miato right in front of them, the 164 ResTech Repardo Corsa car. Just trying to hold on here. Not too defensive is Miato here. I would have expected that to be a little bit more aggressively defensive at this stage, but maybe not asked for, as all three of these cars who are all for position, but just in different classes, the 276, that is, sort of hanging out there. And if you're in the 276 here, if you're LaValle, what do you do at this stage? You're being held up. He clearly feels like they're being held up, but what do you do when it's two pro cars fighting for a spot? I mean, surely you've got to give a little bit of quarter.
Yeah, especially when, the question that you need to be asking yourself if you're the 276 is, can I make up any positions in class overall at this point? And the answer is maybe. We have Hacker up the road a little bit, one of the newest Williams Academy drivers as well. I don't think they are currently. Wow, that was incredible there. But one of the newer drivers there is behind the wheel, though, of the Visceral Esports car this time around for Hacker. And it's going to be interesting to see if they can catch, but I think with 6 seconds, 30 minutes left, it's mathematically possible, but with the scrapping between Bokita and Maito, you kind of just have to let this happen. Maito to the outside line, gets squeezed by Bokita as we enter the corner there. Oh, and there is contact at the apex. And the question there is, was there enough space or was there a move that was not on? But regardless, the results are the same. The Australian Bokita has been sent down under.
I'm going to give her your address. Felipa Bokita there, that BS competition car for the second or third time down into turn one, almost sedentary, but an excellent rejoin by Bokita. It has to be said to let the other cars go through, not to be too caught up in the moment, but it is a punctuation on what has been an unfortunately bad day for BS competition, and Bokita just looks like a little bit of a victim there. I don't know if it was too much of a squeeze or too overzealous of a move, but either way, the BS competition BMW spun around and stopped in the first chicane again. And if you're anybody to do with that team, you just got to let out a sigh and be thankful. 27 minutes left to go with this one. Pack up, start working on the Nürburgring.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's all you can really do right now for the 89 BMW team, as that's a race to forget, or a result to forget at this point, but they won't be forgetting it. And as we saw in chat earlier, the results that are, as I mentioned earlier, I guess, is the results, they matter. Every result matters, and with that disconnect the Samantha Tan Racing team had back at Indy, that might cost them the championship overall. Otherwise, they would be smooth sailing.
Were they?
Is this one of those results
as well? Or were they I feel like they were up there, right?
I think, yeah, they were leading into 2 hours, apparently, into Spielberg before that disconnect had happened, which is, yeah, one to remember for them and, well, one to forget at the same time. It's just difficult, I would say. But either way, they're trying to make up the results. They have a win in the previous race. They have a win or looking at a win in this race, and we'll see if they can get the hat trick over at the Nordschleife in 2 weeks. Let's take a look, though, at the replay with Bokita as we head down to the first chicane here. So Bokita covering the inside on the entry here. You can see moving over to the left there with a bit of a squeeze. This camera angle is not... I cannot tell from this camera angle. I wish we had a helicam on that one. That one's hard to tell.
I'm gonna request the helicopter before I say anything about that one. I don't think we can learn any thing important from that, other than the fact that, yes, there was contact, and yes, the BMW got span around. Marco Bischoff for Team Nitro, trying to work on Lee. No relation, by the way, in the 17 Ferrari. And this just goes to show you there's battles all over the field. I've just heard that we're going to request the footage from the helicopter here. So we are going to beam that down and attempt to get that alternate angle so we can see, because it could have been either way. It could have been BS Competition crowding whenever there was a car there. It could have been a little bit too advantageous, a little too greedy into the corner for the other cars. Well, hard to say. Can't say from that angle. What I can say is 25 minutes left in the 3 hours here of Monza, and it has been a race that for some, I would say, if I had to sum this up, it's been feast or famine for a lot of teams.
Certainly, and a lot of teams have unfortunately been left to starve. We do have a little bit of contact with our helicopter. They've gotten us the footage required. Let's take a look at that replay. So we're looking here to see how far along the Aston Martin is to the BMW. So we're looking on the outside here. We are basically alongside the mirror. We're alongside the rear tire at this point, and I don't know if there was enough, or I do not think the Aston was far enough alongside to be entitled that space.
I think that's excellent analysis. I think we call that in stewarding rules significant overlap, and I do not think it was established there. I think you're right on with that take.
Yeah, very unfortunate, and Bokita is going to just be gutted as a result. Very disappointing for them, and hopefully they can manage it back here. And trying to find, let's see, you're taking a look at the timing. They are 3 seconds off the back of Arndt, and then beyond that, they would be right back onto the battle. So it's definitely not out of the cards. Bokita could still find themselves into 13th. It'll be a tough ask, but still possible with the next 23 and a half minutes remaining.
I got a question, Mike. Level with me. Keep it real with me real quick. I was just praising them for their recovery, and that happened. Is that a commentator's curse? Did I do that?
I need to know the timing. I need to know how long it was after you had praised them. We'll call it like a 3/4 curse. How about that? We'll say that Jesse, hashtag blame Jesse, chat. Just let's get that rolling and hashtag blame Jesse Lee.
Or we don't, and we go to Mike Nouse for a fun fact.
We can go to Mike Nouse for a fun fact. Did you know, and we have mentioned the aviafauna before on every single track. I have yet to mention the aviafauna here at Monza. Do you know how many bird species just so happen to be in the area of Monza?
I'm concerned how often you visit the avian bird regional website. I'm gonna guess how many different variants. 228.
You know, not a bad guess. You're a little bit off. You're highballing it this time, which is a step in the right direction. But yeah, apparently around here in Monza, which honestly, I'm surprised on how few birds there are, because typically you see around the 400s, 200s to 400s. That's pretty typical. But here in Monza, you're going to be, throughout the year, estimated to see about 100 to 150 different bird species, depending on the season that you do show up. So it's not as many birds flying around here that you would expect. It's fascinating.
I would have expected more migratory birds in the area, considering the region, but there you go. Well, it's no surprise that the avian population is not as large as it could rather be, because this is a place known for producing ponies and horses and bulls and et cetera and so forth. So it's more land-based mammals, I think, around this part.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
Hey, I got one in there.
I like it.
There's somebody watching going, I don't get that. And I'm not going to explain it to you, because you'll feel better if you look it up yourself.
It's okay. There's also somebody watching saying, why the heck are these guys talking about birds? Talk about the racing.
Guys, there's cars. Yes, we see the cars. Yeah, that is decidedly low as far as avian variety goes. I would have definitely guessed higher than that. I thought I was lowballing it again, to be fair. But there you go. That's the Mike Nouse fun fact. He's been doing them this entire season. And I suspect whenever we are at the Nürburgring, you will have copious amounts of facts about that racetrack, or perhaps about the indigenous trees, the fauna, the flora there as well. And I'm going to go ahead and work on my guess.
All of that and more to come. Definitely be there. 2 weeks. And
Soon
especially,
to.
I would imagine we're going to be on the midnight stint. And if we're on the midnight stint, you'll be hearing plenty of those fun facts.
Yes, and for anyone who's unaware, the Midnight Stint is the stint to listen to because, well, how would you put it, Mike? It gets a little
the derailed hour.
It gets a little cozy up here in the box is what happens. Felix Arndt for Firefly Esports, the number 77, trying to get by LaFile in the 276, and it's been a while since we heard from Race Control, but here's one incident between the 89 and the 164 that we just saw. 15-second time penalty for 164 for causing a collision. Race Control agreeing with the booth there on that one, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe we agree with them, but either way, we're in agreement that that is what happened there. So unfortunate for BS Competition, and well, unfortunate for everybody, to be fair.
You know, it's justice is what we can say. You know, it's not the content doesn't make up for it. No, it doesn't make up for the content. But what it does do is it's going to put Maito back behind or is it going to put him behind Bokita? Yes, it should put them behind Bokita with 15 seconds. So that is going to be justified. Bokita will get her place back when it all is said and done, but still will have lost a position overall to Arndt. So, you know, you take what you can get, but it's still not a result they would have liked to have.
Certainly not, but, you know, this racetrack, we came on air, we talked about how volatile and peculiar this race was. It's a classic trap race, in my opinion, because if you can start in the middle of the field and have a really good race. Look at, well, this car exactly. I don't know how Ryan Gill read my mind, but Daniel Savini for Automobili Lamborghini, they started in the middle of this field, quite literally in the middle. They have settled into fourth place quite comfortably, though admittedly they are right behind Otaki, who is, wait a minute, hold on a minute here. Has Savini caught up this gap to this group? This was a 7-second gap prior to the pit stop that has all but been erased. Murphy all alone in P2 right now, but less than 2 seconds ahead of the Renwelton car. Savini has erased more than 7.5 seconds, lapping at more than half a second quicker than these guys in front of them. Here comes Daniel Savini for Automobili Lamborghini, but that illustrates my point. You can start in the middle of the pack, you can run a great race and finish up in the front, maybe even a podium, and you can start in the front and end up in the melee in the back, and that's what makes this a classic trap race.
Yeah, Daniel Savini is actually lapping on average this stint I shouldn't say 3.5, my apologies. 3.5 tenths faster, not 3.5 seconds, 3.5 tenths faster every single lap he's averaging. And you can see wearing him like a license plate right now is Otaki. Daniel Savini making his presence well known as the bull locks horns with the Cavaliere Rampanti ahead.
Well, I tell you what's actually really impressive about this. We made a big deal about this all season long. The longevity of the tires or the handling on this Lamborghini seems to go away, but that hasn't happened here in Savini's hands. This car, this raging bull, is about to overtake the galloping horse, and may it happen right now in Ascari. No, it will not, as Savini sees the better part of valor and ducks back in line for the time being, but perhaps seeing red, perhaps charging into the corral is that raging bull.
Yeah, this seems like the writing is on the walls at this point as we go around to the final quarter here. This is the setup. This is the moment. We're going to be seeing a little bit wider of a line, I presume, from the Lamborghini. Ferrari actually trying to set themselves up for a launch as well. No, they're going to be trying to get as maximum minimum speed as they can here. On down the start-finish straight they go. Savini has the slipstream, has the run, and this should be a textbook move as we go down to the inside of the first corner, get onto the brakes, inside had here for Savini. There's a hip check mid-corner. Is there going to be a second one at the apex? Oh, just about. And Savini gets unsettled, has to bide his time and wait another few corners.
Well, it was 2 little touches by my estimation, and you have to wonder in the back of your mind, was that fair in love and war, or was that ever so slightly out of line? I know what Savini thinks, but I'm going to hazard the guess, I know what Otaki thinks about that as well. It was just a little touch, but That has not deterred Savini, who will reload. Remember, it got close in Ascari last time. Will we see a similar approach this time, or will they have to wait an entire lap to load up and do that again? But that was very close. I thought for a second Savini had that done and dusted. Otaki fought back hard.
Yeah, making that Ferrari extra wide right now is Otaki, and needing to continue that trend for the next 15 and a half minutes. Trying to sell a dummy there is Savini, making overreaction out of Otaki. He is not going to be falling for that one. Got to wake up pretty early in the morning to make that mistake. Now, though, this is, again, the big setup opportunity. The first chicane is the best overtaking opportunity, hands down, on this track. And as we head down to Parabolica, this is how you set it up. You get nice and close on the bumper. You run a little bit wide here, carry that extra speed. The Ferrari also electing to carry the extra speed as well. This is going to be affecting their lap times overall, and they will be falling back down towards 5th position, but they don't care. They know that they are battling for either 3rd or 4th right now, and Otaki is going to be allowing Murphy to get away here as we go down to the inside. Looks like Otaki should be able to hold this one. A little bit less of a chance for Savini here, unless he can set up the exit, and he doesn't seem to be able to. A bit of a wiggle.
Otaki's doing something really interesting here. It's something I like. It's something I tell drivers to do. Don't ever be predictable. If you're in the lead, you get to make a move, but you can't do the same move over and over. It's predictable, so do something different. The time before, Otaki went to the outside. That time, Otaki went to the middle, and that confused Savini just long enough that he couldn't get alongside or make up his decision quick enough. Now, I'd like to see this time for Otaki to go all the way to the bottom of the racetrack, or to resort back to type that he did the very first time. Just be unpredictable. You're allowed to be unpredictable in the sense that you can make and move. You can't be swerving around the racetrack, but that doesn't mean that you have to go into the corner the same way every time. And that's kind of why I think Otaki's still in the lead of this group right now, because these is unpredictable. Another fake here. No, not quite close enough. Gonna try and break right up behind the Ferrari, and does, but loses a little bit of time, probably. Oh, and he gets the curb a little hard and goes off to the racetrack, and you can only hope that they have a track limit to burn. Wait with bated breath and hope there's not a DT that shows up. And I think they're just about safe on that one, but there's no way that wasn't a track limit warning.
No, certainly would have been, and not only that, they're losing time now, a 10th and a half back, and out of the slipstream is the most crucial part here. They might be picking up just a touch of the slipstream, but it's not going to be the full effect. And while all of this squabbling has been going on, what has Murphy been doing in the meantime? Well, he's been smiling, to be completely honest, because he's pulled a nice 3-second gap ahead of the Ferrari and the Lamborghini as they continue to battle on. Murphy, he is just hoping right now that Savini doesn't get by Otaki. Murphy has the pace over the Ferrari, but I think he knows that the Lamborghini is quicker.
Yeah, I think Murphy's thing right now is to be as inconspicuous as possible. Don't do anything, and just get away with this, because the more those seconds tick down, the more Savini fails to get by Otaki, the shorter amount of time that they have, and the bigger the gap it becomes to Murphy for Savini. So we're 12 and a half minutes from the end of this thing today, partner, and realistically we get to 10 minutes and it's 4 seconds, 5 seconds. I don't, as quick as Savini is for Lamborghini, I did that rhyme? I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but I don't think with 10 minutes to go, I don't think that's enough time to get there and make the pass. So Murphy is Otaki's biggest fan, but he doesn't necessarily care if Savini beats Otaki or the other way around. He just hopes that Otaki holds out long enough to make that impossible. But look what just happened. Savini was off the back of Otaki for half a lap. Otaki actually ate into Murphy's gap there, 3.2. That's down from the last gap. So, oh man, it's an all-timer.
Yeah, this is going to be very, very close at the end, and it's going to come down to the wire, if I have to say so. Savini here back onto the bumper now of Otaki, and he knows he's running out of time, 11 and a half minutes. It's one thing to catch, it's another thing to overtake, as the late great Murray Walker once said, and it has never been more true, as we have Daniel Savini, the Lamborghini Esports factory team, trying to find any form of daylight onto the 72 currently piloted by Otaki, and as it stands, they have yet to find anything, but still, they started in 19th position. Keep that in mind. It's been 15 positions gained for the 63, and what is 2 more to add to that?
You're Savini's engineer. What do you say to him in the final 10 minutes?
I don't think I've ever been in a situation like that as a race engineer, so I would, again, probably just let them, I don't know, I feel like I'm gonna let them drive sort of team principle, where they know what they need to be doing out there, they know what needs to happen, there's not much competition behind them, you're free to race, just don't make a mistake, really, and maximize the points as a team. I'm not gonna be telling my driver to say, oh, we'll stay in 4th position. No, you go for the podium, boy, you go for the podium.
Spansky, by the way, has knocked Goplet out of the top 5. That will mean very little to Samantha Tan Racing's Ford Mustang, as they have a significant lead, I would say, in the silver class. Just need to get that car home for a win. The same could be said for Tobias Grunwald and the Mercedes Esports Team MSI car out in front of this field. No worry there. Our eyes affixed to the battle for 3rd place. Has a look into Parabolica, nothing doing there, and that wasn't it. A little bit too tight of a line for my liking for Savini, but it hasn't really mattered a whole lot down this straight. That Lamborghini pulls, and it's pulling here. The Ferrari, the tiger stripe Ferrari, as I call it, might be dead in the water. A move here, defensive down to the inside of the racetrack, forcing Savini to go out wide into the first chicane. He's halfway there, and I think he's going to get it. Can Savini make this happen? Otaki holding tough, and he's got him just barely. Savini pulls in front, and that's job done and dusted. Automobili Lamborghini and Daniel Savini, that rhymed, out in 3rd place. Does he have enough time to catch Eamon Murphy?
The question, though, really is does Otaki have the will to take this position back as we go down to the 2nd chicane there? That's going to be Otaki thinking about it very late on the brakes, but only enough to keep him out of the back bumper of the Lamborghini. Now, that was a self-inflicted error, to be honest, from Otaki. That kind of, the overtake started on the exit of Parabolica when Otaki dipped a tire into the gravel, then onto the final corner, compromised his run. Savini had, in my opinion, a worse run, but either way, the slipstream and the launch was enough. The V10, the Audi-powered V10 5.2 liter gets by the 2.96 liter 6-cylinder engine of the Ferrari. And now it seems that is, got to be careful, keep everything under control, but 5/10 already is the gap, it seems, but the slipstream, we know how powerful it can be down the start-finish straight.
Yeah, it certainly can be, but Savini's eyes are forward here, up into P3, could be P2. What a day this would be. From around 19th to P3 to the podium, that's already a win for them, but P2, that would be the cherry on top of the sundae. Meanwhile, racing around the entire circuit right now, this fight here for 13th, Miato, LaFile, and Arndt all in a pile together, racing for these spots, and you've got a mix of classes here, but when you get this late into a race, none of that matters. This is bragging rights first and positional points second.
It certainly is, and every single one of the drivers here knows it. With the penalties as well, who knows who's going to finish where? So it's just about getting to the line right now ahead of as many cars as possible, because that's all you really can do when you're in this mid-pack. We see Jeremy there try to go wide and set it up. Here's the replay, though. This is the Lamborghini. You can see, tries to go to the inside, but he could see the Ferrari was moving right there, not going to give him the space. Down to the outside, turns to the in for the second part. No contact made either from any of the drivers. Enough space to fit a piece of paper, probably not even a credit card, but no contact nonetheless. Oh, here's not going to be the same. Oh. No, they don't.
They just about make it through there. A little bit of contact exiting the first chicane, but they're able to get away with it, as they'll still be side by side here, fighting over this spot, as that lets Miato escape a little bit. LaFile and Arndt here are not in the same class, but equal machinery nonetheless, fighting over this spot. Arndt's going to try and go around the inside. That will become the outside. Gets it done before they hit the Seconda Variante, and they are out of here, at least for the time being. Got to catch back up to Miato. That will be for position the 164 versus the 77, as Jeremy Lafile for ERE is the odd man out here.
And trying what he can right now, looking for the daylight, we all know. But again, this isn't for position technically. This is just a battle for fun, as we had mentioned. It's about the pride, the style points, and who can finish where when all of the deciding factors are up ahead. And just looking at lap time. So the thing that I was looking at here is for Eamon Murphy to get overtaken by Savini. Savini needs to be lapping half a tenth a lap quicker. And as we came to the line last time around, it was only 2.5 tenths. I'm curious. It's one thing to catch, it's another thing to overtake. I don't know if the Lamborghini is going to be able to make it, barring any mistakes from the McLaren.
No, I totally agree, partner. I don't think he's going to get there. I think he's going to be somewhere around 3.5 seconds off by the time the race ends, unless Eamon Murphy makes a mistake. And of course, bear in mind, we've had a couple of drive-throughs and speeding penalties in pit lane today, so the unforced errors are still a thing. We saw a couple of drivers in these most recent exchanges gather additional track limit warnings. We've had one car, the 39, has had multiple drive-throughs for track limits today, and if it can happen to them, it can literally happen to anybody. A car off into the dirt exiting Lesmo 1, they're going to stay well and truly clear to let the traffic through, and that helps everybody here as Chris Harteveld continues to try and size up the 255. Doesn't need to pass him here, and probably at this state thinks that, well, I can't get Spanksky, so it doesn't really matter. Oh, that was the 7 that was off. That was the 7 that is off. The 7 McLaren was the car that was off in the Lesmo. That's into the breach racing. They have given up a top 5 spot in this race after going off in the final 5 minutes in Lesmo 1.
Gutting, absolutely gutting. That was going to be a good haul of points for the ITB Racing team, and unfortunately, it's still going to look like a decent amount, but not as many as they would have hoped. And yeah, just again, gutting is really the only way to put that. I guess some of the other fun stats kind of coming out of this race here. The number 40 McLaren, looking at the first podium that they've ever had in this championship. That's going to be, or no, I take that back. As I said, they've had one podium in round 1 at Suzuka, but this will be the second podium they've had of the season, their highest finishing result for the Veloce number 40 team. On top of that, this will be the 3rd win for the AMG MSI team if the checkered flag was to fall on this lap. Tobias Grunwald will pilot that one, what seems to be to a victory at this stage, and it looks like we'll have about 100 laps complete when that does happen. Looking down at Otaki in the number 4, the 72 car. Again, another brilliant result for the team, and potentially on for their highest finishing result as well. Their best result before this, a P6.
Yeah, it's incredible. Some teams are getting finishes that they need or that they would have liked early in the season, but better late than never, my father always says. But, it's true. A win is a win, and a good finish is a good finish. No matter what, you can cry over spilt milk, but it's not going to put it back in the jug. So it's better to just focus on what's actually going on currently. I tell you what, what happened with Spanksky and the issue into the breach had. That's unfortunate for them. That's fun if you are the Samantha Tan team. You've got your top 5 back. And it's also interesting for the battle we were previously looking at between Ciata and Harteveld, because the winner of that fight, which looks like now it's going to be Scuderia Ferrari, they're going to get a top 5 in their class out of that, whoever inevitably wins that fight. And it looks like, of course, it's going to be Harteveld right now, with Ciata having that 5-second penalty. A couple of positions behind them. This fight meaningless as far as points are concerned, but ultimately important for bragging rights. Lomi and Rodriguez. Williams trying to claw back an additional spot here and another spot inside the top 10.
Yeah, and looking to maybe make the move into the first corner here. Let's see, the Brazilian driver not going to be even thinking of a move, really. It seems like the speeds there pretty much evenly matched. And again, I think Rodriguez, they know they have Kisser behind about 6 seconds. There's really no point in going for the overtake onto Lomi. Yes, it's for the bragging rights. Yes, it's for that. But if there's actual risk involved, if you do end up risking getting into a collision, there's really no point in going for the move. It's just unnecessary danger. That car behind has nothing to do with this fight. That is a back marker.
258, the absolute res tech by Acelith team has got a drive-through penalty. That is for track limits. As you see the 20th place car, Bauman behind the wheel, will have to deal with that. Actually, they technically don't, because there's not 3 laps left in the race. They can cross the line and have that converted to a time penalty. Some tracks that's actually advantageous to do. Others, it's more detrimental to take the time penalty, but either way, they're going to have to make the decision quite quickly. Tobias Grunwald, only decision they're going to have to make for the Team MSI is how to celebrate this perfect day. It's been another brilliant race and an excellent drive by the entire team today. A total complete effort, not a foot put wrong, and not a mistake to be found. It's been an MSI day.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think they probably already have had plenty of time to think about their celebrations and how exactly they're going to do it. It's been a dominant one for the 86, not just in this race, to be honest. It's been a dominant championship for the 86, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this mathematically seals them up for the win for the championship, does it not?
They are half a lap away, folks, at home from becoming champion-elect of the 2024 Intercontinental GT Challenge Esports Series. And they can't wait to get to the flag. Time has expired. Here comes Tobias Grunwald.
His final run. Soak in the sun, soak in the cheers, as there's only one more corner left for the 86.
It's a scary moment for everybody else because this team has been so dominant. They've ran so well, and they've had to race well because they've not always qualified well. But today, it was a complete effort. A top 3 start led into a win. Easy peasy as you like. Tobias Grunwald and Mercedes-AMG Esports Team MSI win it and become champion-elect for 2024.
Behind that, a hard-fought effort for Eamon Murphy. The writing was maybe on the walls at one point, but he managed to get through the adversity. Eamon Murphy back onto the podium for the Veloce Vexed McLaren, and he takes home P2. Daniel Savini, a incredible result. The team drivers of the day, in my opinion, managing to make up over 15 positions to finish on the podium from 19th place.
Just absolutely incredible job there. A quiet day for Veloce, but excellently ran. The opposite for Automobili Lamborghini, who just drove through this field in a brilliant show of strength, but easy peasy. It looks easy for us, but just a brilliant job. They would have told Grunwald the championship is done and dusted. It's a win. Enjoy it, and he's doing that right now, making some cookies for all of us in the infield right now. Look at that.
Absolutely. And don't forget, chat, just because this championship is done does not mean that we will not be returning in 2 weeks. We will be back for the Nordschleife to decide the final race of the championship, and P2 and P3 still on the line. And if you move on to the silver category, who the heck knows what's going to happen there?
No, I asked the Magic 8 Ball, and it said ask again later. That's how topsy-turvy the silver championship is. There's about 5 drivers in the silver category that can win that championship. 3 hours of racing gone in a flash here, Mike Naus. And what's your highlight of the day other than Automobili Lamborghini doing nearly impossible, getting a podium from about 20th place today? What's your other takeaway? What's the other standout moment?
You know, I think the other real standout moment overall is I'm just trying to, I guess, take a look here at the final results and see, because I will say that, I mean, the Lamborghini, obviously, that is my pick of the day today, because my goodness. But all in all, I mean, I think the 28 Samantha Tan Racing, they're back, baby. I think that's just what it goes to show you is you can knock them down once. It doesn't matter. You disconnect them. That's not going to fault their confidence. They come back stronger than ever, and they take a race win in the silver category. So more power to the 28 Samantha Tan Racing team there for the Mustang GT3 team.
There you go. Samantha Tan back in the winner's circle again. And I think mine is going to be how another race has come and gone with Team MSI. And it's a completely different scenario every single week, right, partner? But every single time they find a way to win. They avoid being taken out early in the race. They set in P2. They were able to take the lead by virtue of the pit stop. And they were just faster than anybody else, and nobody could hang with their stuff. Team MSI have won races this season in very different ways, and it's been a different scenario every single time. They might be the most versatile team on the grid.
Yeah, it's been a different scenario every single time, but the result has almost been the same every single time, which is just incredible to say. You put them into any situation, it seems they can make the best out of it. Their worst result so far in the championship is a P2 finish. And when you can say that your worst result is a P2, well, I think things are going pretty well in your favor.
Winning photo presented by Dynamic Photography. It is your champion-elect Mercedes-AMG Esports Team MSI car, and that team has done such a perfect job. We'll call it immaculate to get to this point. Big thank you to Dynamic for providing their photography to SRO Esports. And while we have a minute, a big thank you to all of our partners that make this championship happen. Fanatec, AWS, Pirelli, Kuno Simulazione, AK Esports, SimGrid, SRO Esports, AMG, Dynamic, of course, our brand partners with Ferrari, Lamborghini, BMW as well. We appreciate them. And man, I can't wait as we're getting the interviewees in. They're getting off the scales, and they'll be with us in a moment. And we'll see who we start with here. Specifically, we're going to talk to the silver winners and the pro winners. Mike Nelson and I both are going to take interviews from one of them. And I tell you what, Mike, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull you the silver winners.
Lovely. Here we have our silver winning team out there tonight, the Samantha Tan, number 28. And if I do have to start off by saying, I don't think that you guys winning by the margins that you did win by is the full story out there. There were some wars to be had. And I guess, how did it go from your guys' perspective? Michael, why don't you start us off?
So starting it off, I mean, the race start was pretty solid. We obviously avoided the carnage. Going into T1, we were on the left-hand side going into it, so that was pretty solid. Pretty thankful to get through that. And then I just, for some reason, throughout the first stint, just lacking the confidence that I had during practice. I knew the pace was there, obviously the one-lap pace, but wasn't the most solid thing. But still, going into stint 2, we were in P2, and Lucas and Vale were the faster drivers here for sure, and they brought the race back from what I did in that first stint. So pretty solid, all things considered, I'd think.
Yeah, I mean, overall, you guys managed to take the race win. I'd say very solid. Lucas, you managed to, as we were saying, different paces throughout the team. Now, Michael, I would say you're selling yourself a little bit short on that one. But Lucas, you managed to put on a battle of the century. Again, fighting with the 7-Eleven team. There must have been a couple moments that you were maybe doubting things. I don't know. What was your thought process through the middle stints there?
Yeah, I mean, it all happened after micro pit stop. We already gained like 2 seconds, so the gap was like 4 seconds to the silver class. And yeah, after I passed one McLaren in Parabolica, I just saw red, just blood, just pushing like hell. And he made a mistake, exiting Ascari, and I was coming closer and closer, and I was like, yeah, this is it, I have to go for it. Send it up the inside, and yeah, after that, just controlling the 1 second gap, 2 second gap, and then it was all Vale.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going to bring it down to. Vale, you managed to get handed the car at the very end, and you managed to control it with utmost perfection. There wasn't it wasn't much of a decider at that point, I think, but were you sweating at all by the time you had gotten behind the wheel?
I mean, the P1 was like a little bit gifted because the second lap I was out, the car in front got a drive-through. So then I had a 11-second gap to P2, and I just chilled because I wasn't that confident, especially in Ascari. So yeah, just needed what was necessary.
Well, at a certain level of talent, luck and skill become indistinguishable, and I think you guys showed that tonight. Congratulations. Is there anything that you guys would like to say before we move on, or anyone you'd like to thank?
Just big thank you to Samantha Tan Racing. Obviously, getting to represent them in the series is really nice, and they're obviously helping us out. So big thanks to them for sure.
And Marco Moninger, now
Oh,
our setup guru.
absolutely.
So yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you guys very much. Michael Mooning, Lucas Meta, and of course, Vale Goplet, your race winners in the silver category. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Up next, Jesse has caught up with the gold drivers.
I sure have, Mike, and there's some happy drivers here, maybe a little bit relieved as well. Guys, you've just not only knocked it out of the park today and won the race, but you've somehow found a new way to win a race, leading from the front, avoiding the chaos. My question to the driver in the car at the time, which might have been Hubin, did you see the chaos unfolding right around you, and how did you miss it if you did?
I was very cautious at the start and in the first corner, and I saw that the cars around me got a little bit too close, and then I got in my ear, go left, cut it. And I just saw a Ferrari flying into us, and yeah, that's basically it. Just been lucky this time.
I got a second one then. You knew that there was a 30-second penalty for the 255. What was the game plan there? It didn't look like you were too, pressed to get that spot because you knew you were going to get on the pit stop, but is that the reality? Is that how you saw it?
Yeah, I mean, we were in net P1 after all, after the start, and we knew P1 had a 30-second penalty, and it was just, risk management. We basically just don't want to die in the Ascari chicane because we have to use a very special line, to say the least. Just managing the risk and being able to pull a small gap and then driving it home.
Well, it was an excellently strategized and well-ran race in that first hour to not over-pursue. Tobias Pfeffer, you had the middle stint. You were in charge of growing the lead and not getting tangled up with back markers. Was there sort of a cautious optimism, or were you nervous about knowing that there was still a significant portion of the race? How do you tackle that as a driver?
I mean, I was just completely relaxed and focused on my driving, actually. As Niklas said, it's a bit tricky in Ascari not to crash or something like that. But yeah, I was just relaxed for the whole stint and wasn't thinking a lot about it, just driving, actually. I think that's also the best you can do in this situation.
I absolutely agree. From one Tobias to another, we're going to go to Tobias Grunwald here, who brought up the end of the race, which is sometimes the most scary. Was there any sort of concern maybe with track limits or anything in your mind coming to the end there, or were you counting the moments, the seconds down until it was over?
No, it was actually a pretty chilled stint. I mean, we had a big lead. The guys did a perfect job. So I was able to basically, let's say, cruise it home. Obviously, it was a bit of extra pressure because I knew that if we win and Lamborghini would finish P3, we might still win the championship in that round already. So I was just trying to keep it on track and keep that gap to P2, and we managed it and we came out on top.
I got a question for all three of you now. What does it feel like being at this point? You've been so dominant, you've been so good, you've been fascinating to watch. You've won in many different ways, and you've had to use a plethora of strategy to get to this point, and it's all worked. You guys have dominated, but in a non-dominating way. What's it feel like to get to this point? I assume satisfaction, but it's just got to be a weight off your shoulders knowing that this championship's done and dusted. You guys are going to be champion.
I mean, for me, it feels great, obviously, to be honest. And that shouldn't sound wrong or something, but it feels a bit boring because in the past years there's always been some mistakes or some unlucky situations for us, driver mistakes on our side, crashes and stuff like that, which made us not win the championship. But this year it was just like driving, and everything went well. We had luck in every race. I think we got one small penalty, but apart from that, I think it was literally a perfect race, a perfect championship, 3 wins, 2 P2s. So yeah, I mean, I'm super happy.
There you go, folks. Anybody you want to shout out or say thanks to for this brilliant win today and potentially the championship?
Yeah, I
I'd
mean,
like to say thank you to the whole team. I mean, we are not just 3 drivers. We have spotters, managers. We have more teams. We have more drivers. I think especially that's one of our strong points, that we have so many good guys in the background, and everyone is helping each other out. And I think that's what makes us so strong in the end. So big shout out to them.
Well, there you have it. Folks at home, they dominated today and got the job done. The Mercedes-AMG Esports team, MSI, winning the race and elect as champions. Congratulations. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Hey, what do you say you finish it off with one more crown jewel victory, huh? Congratulations and good luck. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Well, Mike, I gotta say, happy and relieved winners there, and seemed very poised. They've been in that situation before. Every race up to this point had led them to have faith in themselves, to believe that they could do it, and also not overpressure themselves, knowing that they're good, knowing that they can overcome, adapt. Today, where they didn't really have to overcome or adapt anything, it just felt like it felt easy in a way, or boring, as Grunwald may have put it there. But just a brilliant display and worthy champions, I think we'll both agree.
Oh, almost certainly. And to be completely honest, setting the standards pretty high for the next season in terms of the SRO Gold Championship, with a new SRO Gold Champions as Team MSI there, the number 86. That is a title that they get to say for the rest of their lives. They get to say that they have won in a level and a competition of this caliber, which that is just amazing. Again, I feel like they were maybe still processing it. I don't know. I feel like at the end of the day, they're going to be pretty happy. But all in all, it has just been an amazing championship, and still with one more race to go, I personally cannot wait and to see how the Silver Championship is going to fall. Well, nobody really knows that one.
No, they certainly don't. 5 cars, just about by my estimation, can win the Silver Championship, but to do it, they're going to have to survive 24 hours of the Nürburgring, the 28th of September. Thank you all for being with us. Subscribe to the channel, follow, hit the bell. Make sure that you're with us for the 24 hours of the Nürburgring. Yes, really, 24 hours of the green hell, not just the Grand Prix Strecke, the entire Nordschleife as well. 28th of September, we'll show you every lap live here at SRO Esports. I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Mike Nouse. It's been a pleasure bringing you this summer stretch of the season. We'll see you in a couple of weeks to wrap this thing up and decide a couple of champions and hand out some hardware. See you at the Nürburgring. And until then, have a good night.